Hello, everybody, and welcome back to continuing coverage of the 2025 College League of Legends National Championship. We are here in our top 8 stage. We've narrowed things down from 32 teams all the way down to 8, and we're going to narrow that down even further throughout the course of this weekend. 4 series here on UniEsportsNA as we go from our top 8 teams to our final 4 as we continue on our road to Raleigh. My name is Grapes, joined alongside Hawk for our coverage of this series here today in University of St. Thomas up against the University of Western Ontario here in the upper bracket semifinals, Hawk, and maybe not the stage that we were expecting to see these two teams face off in, but definitely an exciting series nonetheless.
Well, and Grapes, maybe not the stage we're expected to see these teams face off in either, because it's Ole Miss versus Western, not UST, but definitely not the stage we expected these two teams. Definitely not the stage we expected these two teams either, because one of these teams been on a heater. One of them, they've been performing about to expectations so far, but those expectations have been quite lofty.
Yeah, this again, Ole Miss versus Western. Thank you very much for that correction. In the upper bracket of the tournament, we can take a look at that upper bracket right now as we go through what has happened through the first 2 weeks of the college championships. About relatively standard across the board in terms of what the matchups look like in the upper bracket, except for Western, who have gone on a bit of a tear, taking down Winthrop and then St. Thomas, who I was talking about there in the upper bracket quarterfinals in what was a crazy 5-game series to set themselves up for a path to the top 6 of the college championship.
Yeah, I mean, Western has been on an absolutely insane run. They're the only team to take down one of the big 5, as it were, being Winthrop, St. Thomas, Maryville, Fisher, and Ole Miss. And they've done it twice. And Grapes, dare I say, coming into the tournament, Western was not one of the teams we expected to be able to take down the big 5. We kind of reserved that for the St. Clairs, the ISUs of the world, and it is Western that has done it back-to-back times. They find themselves in, at worst, top 6, and they are 1 series away from prizing as well. On the other side of the bracket, though, Maryville against Fisher, the matchup we expected to see. Both these teams been looking good. No stream currently for that match, but we'll keep you all updated if one does crop up.
And let's take a look at the lower bracket of things where they are getting on with their lower bracket quarterfinals as we speak. Or sorry, the lower round 5 is the better explanation for that. Winthrop versus Northwood. It will be happening on this stream after the conclusion of this best of 5. And you can check out the coverage of University of St. Thomas up against the Tactics of UHSP over on twitch.tv/saltyrunbackNA. But let's get back to our current series here today, which is Ole Miss going up against Western, because this is certainly going to be an exciting one to talk about. Obviously, with Ole Miss, they have a lot of high expectations. They are the furthest that they have ever been in the tournament in their program's history. Obviously, Western has been to a national finals back in 2019 in the past and has been to these top stages before, Hawk. So a bit of a clash in terms of the history of these teams and in terms of the expectations, because Ole Miss definitely was expected to be here, and Western right now kind of playing with house money a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely they are. I mean, it's so interesting seeing these two teams playing up against each other, too, because, again, Ole Miss, another one of the big 5, as it were. Another soul, perhaps, for Western to reap in this upper bracket. The historically most successful club program that College League of Legends has ever seen, and it's not even close. We had a conversation, actually, in the Salty Runback Discord not too long ago about who the top 5 programs would be in CLOL history, and a lot of people agreed that Western is probably on that list. What they've been able to do with minimal support over the course of their history is undeniably impressive. Multiple top 4 appearances, including that finals appearance that you mentioned. They've made it to the top 8. They've done it all. And this team, I think 4-time East Conference champions, didn't quite get that title this year, but yet they find themselves at top 6 in the country nonetheless, when champion St. Clair already has gone down in the top 12. So Western is a team that you just can never count out. And even when they've counted themselves out this year, threatening to forfeit their game, saying it's their last ride, they've continued riding. And for that, I have to tip my cap to the Western Legends.
Yeah, and with one more best of 5 win here against Ole Miss, they not only would lock themselves into top 3, which would be their best showing since their finals run in 2019, but they would also get themselves into the prize pool a little bit. And we can unveil that for the fans as well, just to let you all know what the stakes are for this game. Not just the glory of collegiate, but also a little bit of that cash. I'm sure the players would be very happy with that.
I mean, it's been a stated goal of the Western Ontario guys. Hey, we want our prize money, and they are now only one series away from that. And you have to believe that's part of their motivation to continue on. And they get two chances to try and earn it with a loss here today, sending them down to the lower bracket. The loser of this series does meet the winner of Winthrop versus Northwood. Definitely a difficult series perhaps to overcome there, but an exciting one nonetheless. Grapes, I do want to continue talking about this matchup, however, though, because we've sort of gone over the Western side of the coin, what they're playing for. Ultimately, house money given their expectations, but Ole Miss, a disappointing exit in top 8 from the tournament last year, a heartbreaking reverse sweep against SLU. They've already gone further than that, top 6 at absolute minimum, and they have, by all accounts, a favorable draw to make top 3 with potentially 2 chances at Raleigh on the line.
Well, let's take a look at their starting lineup as well to see who exactly they are working with to get to that top 3 mark with a win here in the series today. Stray, Keel, Asila, Shogo, and Rhino are their full 5. Head coach Colomer by their side as well. And you might notice that they have the Supernova jerseys on for all 5 of these players, and that's because for this split of NACL, the Ole Miss roster has been competing underneath the Supernova banner. They have not played as well in the NACL as they might have hoped for, and especially in comparison to what they've been able to do in CLOL, but still a lot of good experience for this squad, and just coming off of a series that they played against Winthrop yesterday, there is a good chance that they could meet them if things don't go well for them again tomorrow in the lower bracket.
And always the question with Ole Miss, this team, very momentum-based, losing to NECC rival, the greatest rivalry in League of Legends right now, yesterday in the NACL. It begs the question, is Ole Miss going to be mad today, or are they going to be tilted? And I think those are two very different things, because to me, mad is motivated, tilted is unfocused, right? And I want to see if Ole Miss is back for a vengeance, or if they fall prey to some of the sloppiness that we have seen, particularly from the NACL. And now it's worth noting, generally we've considered Western to not be on the same level of talent, but they've beaten Winthrop already, right? So Ole Miss absolutely cannot sleep on this Western team. We're expecting the bottom lane of Shogo and Rhino to be the headliners, as it always has been for this team, but everybody else is going to need to step up, because if, dare I say, one of the biggest problems for Ole Miss so far this year has been that it just doesn't feel like Stray, Keel, and Asila have been consistent enough to support the entire game plan, game in and game out.
And this will be a good test for them up against a Western team that definitely has their strengths, but also has their weaknesses. If we could take a look at their starting 5, we mentioned the fact that they had some issues in terms of signing up for the tournament or being able to play through the entire tournament. And that's because now their support Lynx, who has been their captain, been one of their best players throughout the entire run of this season, is now unavailable for the remainder of the tournament. So they'll be rocking with Vince in the bot lane alongside Julian, with the top side of Dr. Calculus, Crackodon, and Love Sick Candy. Overall, Hawk, the name of the game for Western is team fight, team fight, team fight. If you get to the late stage of the game, you get these late game picks like the Aurelion Soul, the Aphelios popping off here for Julian. That's when Western currently find their most success. And I think slotting Vince in here is going to be an interesting situation, given that they are mostly an enchanter player. Will they be able to continue that play style, or will they try to make some adjustments?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting question as well, because I mean, we just talked about it. The bottom lane is and always will be the headliner for this Ole Miss act. And Julian and Vince are going to have their work cut out for them. We've been seeing a lot of really good stuff out of Julian throughout this CLOL season. I think Julian has been one of the biggest individual surprises of this CLOL season across any team anywhere. But he has had Lynx alongside, and Lynx, Grapes, not just the best player, one of the best players for Western throughout their run this year, but he has been the heart and soul of this team for many years. And I do think the loss of Lynx is pretty substantial when particularly looking at that bottom lane 2v2. And Vince is absolutely going to have some very large shoes to fill in. However, as you mentioned, this team has a particular proclivity for team fighting. And to both their benefit and their detriment, they just love to take the gloves off from minute one and fight you with members from all over the map all game long. And it is their biggest strength and their biggest weakness, because teams that are able to deal with it well and outplay them will beat this team and beat them handily. We saw St. Clair do it in the East Conference Finals. However, if the opposition is haphazard about their approaches to fights, Western absolutely has the hands to punish you big time. And that's been the biggest problem we've seen from Ole Miss X Supernova in the NACL, is just the inability to look like they're on the same page when they're approaching neutral objective fights. And so I want to see Western just force Ole Miss into difficult situations, ask difficult questions, and perhaps a breakdown in the setups is possible.
And that's what we've seen from how series have gone for Western against other teams in that Big Five. And honestly, for Western, they've had themselves probably the toughest road in terms of matchups against teams throughout their run so far. Going from Winthrop to UST to Ole Miss, certainly not an easy task. If they win this one, it's either Maryville or Fisher, so just continuing to run into a massive gauntlet. But so far, it's worked out well for them, and we'll see if it continues here as we're onto the draft for game number 1. Remember, not fearless like we have seen in the Tier 1 leagues, so it means that every single champion is going to be on the table for all 5 games. And we already see Ole Miss doing something that UST was unable to do in the first 2 games of that series, and that is to ban away the Aurelion Sol bot lane for Julian. Sometimes, even if it's not meta, if it works for you in this league, in this level, it works for you. And so good on Ole Miss to respect that and to take that pick away.
Yeah, comfort is king, and Colomer, coach of Ole Miss, recognizing that early on. I really like this. Just don't let Western get their comfort picks, because they've also not necessarily proven they can play the meta in every lane, particularly in the bottom lane, where Julian and up to this point Lynx have just been playing a lot of different stuff. So I think at least removing the Aurelion Sol is good. I think you are threatening a Nefiri first pick for Keel if that one does not get taken away. I feel like Keel has not been the biggest purveyor of the Nefiri so far throughout this year, but I mean, it's definitely a champion I'd expect most junglers to be able to play.
He's played it a couple times, I think, throughout the year. I think he played it maybe once in their series against ISU. I'm not remembering entirely if that was the case, but he has played. I feel like he will definitely be comfortable on that champion, and that is something that we've seen teams drop prio on, interestingly, throughout pick ban in this CLOL championship specifically. Thinking back to St. Clair last week, where they seemed to refuse to ban it away, even though it ended up being a really powerful pick against them by Fisher en route to their reverse sweep in the upper bracket. So this is going to be an interesting thing to see if Western decide to take that pick away. I know Krakodon can play it as well, so just about what the teams do prioritize. We are seeing some of those pocket picks, some of those priority picks for Western banned away. This is a benefit of being on blue side as well for Ole Miss. You get to take away more targeted selections here, as the Nefiri will be left up on B1 if Ole Miss want to take it away.
Multiple point and clicks getting banned by Western immediately as well leads me to talk about Julian's Neela pick, which synergizes very well with the enchanters that we've seen Vince be playing in solo queue. They're almost exclusively an enchanter player. Low master, 200 LP or so. I'm just curious. Like, they're banning out point and clicks for a reason. I will say, does definitely enable Shogo to potentially have a pop off. But we see some of the first picks coming through. The Rumble B1 makes a lot of sense. You don't need to go Nefiri, as this is a contested pick between these 2 top laners, both Stray and Dr. Calculus. Big enjoyers of this one.
Yeah, specifically Dr. Calculus loves this Rumble pick. So taking that away, almost like a 4th ban in a way, as we see the Lulu early lock-in for Vince. You imagine that is going to be their focus, to just get Vince on one enchanter kind of down the tier list as we go on, and the Xin Zhao for Krakodon to round things out. It looks like, though, Ole Miss are going to try to counter this with their selections in the draft. They're going to go for a Lucian Nami to try and punish that Lulu in the bottom lane early.
Lucian Nami is really interesting to me as well, because I feel like we've been seeing the Lucian Milio a lot more recently, just in other leagues, but I mean, clearly, Shogo and Rhino, we've seen them play this before. It is still the tried and true. Up against a Jinx Lulu, it is going to have a very favorable matchup early on, just trying to scale Julian into the later stages. Seems that the call is just to make Julian the big late game hyper carry. We have already talked about the power of Western in the team fights. But it is going to enable some key bans to come through. I'm looking at Scion away from Dr. Calculus. However, obviously not a favorable matchup into the Rumble. I'm of the belief that you maybe just shouldn't give it over anyway, because that champion is kind of OP as hell if you're not able to kill him efficiently, no matter how far behind he falls. And then also mages for Lovesick Candy in the mid lane, a big thing for me. You've already got a Xin Zhao locked in, AD jungler, as well as a hyperscaling AD carry. You need that magic damage splash somewhere.
The Jace ban signifies that maybe that's what they're worried that Calculus can play, as it is just soul laners left to be locked in here for the side of Western. Ole Miss, of course, needs a mid laner and most likely a jungler. There's an Fury takeaway. Finally got banned in that 5th ban, so it looks like they are worried about that for Kiel just a little bit. I will say something that can have a lot more impact in the early game specifically now, I would maybe want to prioritize for Ole Miss, because if you could get this Lucian Nami ahead, Shogun Rhino can absolutely take over this game before even a Chulian can get to a point where you can start to win some team fights for your team.
I mean, not to start cooking early, but like, Kiel, could this be the Nunu game? Like, I'm just saying, you're against Jinx Lulu in the bottom lane. It's pretty decent against Xin Zhao. I don't know. I don't think he's going to play it, but it could just be really funny. Hui for Lovesick Candy, though, again, it's a mage. It's something that can scale really well, is a fairly safe blind, and, you know, shouldn't cause too many problems. I am surprised to see them take this early, though. It does deny any potential, like, Azir for Asila, but, I mean, they had top lane counterpick on the table. Instead, they're going to open up Asila to pick up the Syndra.
And interestingly enough, because we've been seeing Western play very scrappy play styles throughout their season, it looks like Ole Miss kind of trying to match that a little bit, right? The Syndra is a little bit more towards scaling now that it's been reworked, but still can provide a lot of utility, provide a lot of damage in some of these mid-game moments once you get that first item, once Shogo and Rhino start to become online. And so looks like Ole Miss are preparing themselves to play Western's game, even though the team composition for them doesn't necessarily speak of it right now. We get a Kha'Zix locked in finally here for Kiel on the B5 for Ole Miss. And they have set themselves up with a wild, albeit a little bit of a volatile draft in game number 1.
Okay, and then we get the Galio counter pick into the Rumble. The Kha'Zix, though, for Kiel. This was not an expected pick, and not one I think I've really seen Kiel play ever. Now, Kiel, very well known, especially earlier on in his career, towards, 2022, 2021. He could play anything. This man would play the Karthus when it wasn't popular, Nunu. He'd play Wukong when it wasn't popular. This guy has been an enjoyer of many a different champion over the course of time. But this is a really unexpected pick. You needed physical damage coming out of the jungle with double magic solo laners, and you're talking about it. Let's start a checkbox actually for each draft. Can Western permafight? Yes or no? And absolutely not, based on this draft. Ole Miss has an incredibly aggressive composition with high octane early mid-game damage in all 4 roles. They are going to try to come out Western hard and fast, and Western is going to need to play a disciplined game as a result. But Grapes, we've just not really seen that from them so far this year.
Yeah, not been super disciplined. However, if they can get to that late stage, at an even game state, at an even footing, they certainly can, perform well and maybe even take down Ole Miss. Because if you're at that even point with this late game scaling comp, against what Ole Miss have, you definitely are favored compositionally speaking. I will say, we didn't get full confirmation on this yet, but looking down at the draft at the end of that, the soul laners didn't swap. So right now it's Candy on the Galio, Dr. Calculus on the Hui. I wonder if they are going to swap back to have Candy play in the top lane because he's more comfortable on the Galio, or if that means we're getting Hui top. I don't think we've ever seen that really before, so we will kind of investigate as we continue to move along.
Our producer Lexi, shout out, did say that there's a bug with the draft. So I wonder if it was a swap bug, which we have seen.
We'll see.
Perhaps the teams will end up remaking the lobby and all that fun jazz. So we'll keep you all updated. Grapes, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not expecting the Calculus Hui top. It does not sound good.
We've seen him play the Aurora. I know that is not a
that's so much
typical
different.
It is a mage though. I'm saying he can play the mages a little bit. I know, remember we talked on Salty Runback about the Anivia top maybe being a possibility here. Maybe he's been
But like,
practicing
okay,
some of
okay,
those
but
mid lane
like even
picks.
Anivia top has so much more safety because you can just play like so uninteractively and you have a wall. Like Hui is just a guy that likes art that like dies
I
to
don't
a stiff
know.
breeze. I don't think Cal-
Hey,
I
only
look,
time will
I
tell.
guess I've seen Stranger Things. Calculus absolutely can't play the magic damage top laners. I just am not expecting it. I will say we have gotten more word that he is playing it, by the way. Oh no, okay, it's a remake. Never mind. All right, so I think my superstitions are correct.
We will see
If
exactly what that means. Because if
if
Dr.
Calculus
Calculus
played
is
Hoi
playing the
top,
Hui
then
top lane, that would cause a lot more fun stories to be shared throughout this game
dude,
specifically
it's
of
like it's like
what our
screw it, man. We don't
expectations
got
have been.
links here. Upper bracket, like against Ole Miss. Play the way top. Like why the hell not? You know.
Let's just roll for hopefully surviving the early game and then just become Thanos at the end of the game. That is clearly what Western have set themselves up to try and be. I do like the combination of the Xin Zhao and the Jinx with the Lulu specifically for Vince. Getting champions that work well with those enchanters certainly will be good. We are receiving word. It is a bit of a server issue on TR for the first week for these teams. So we're going to stand put here, continue to discuss what's going on around CLOL before we get into game number 1 of this best of 5 here in the upper semifinals between Ole Miss and Western. Because we want to make sure the players are at their highest potential going into what could be one of their most important series of the entire season, something that they've worked their entire years for.
Yeah. To talk a bit more about early expectations for this game, again, Western maybe not going to be able to get away with permafighting in the early to mid stages. But what are the important lanes? And without the shadow of a doubt, in my opinion, it's actually not bottom lane. Like, I think bottom lane is the most important lane, but to me, the mid jungle is going to be where this game is won and lost because if Western can win the mid jungle, which Huiz and Zhao, a really solid 2v2, and Asila has struggled to deal with pressure sent his way. He has typically been the target for a lot of teams that have played against this Ole Miss lineup. If you can get that going and you can keep Asila behind, it actually becomes really difficult for Ole Miss to support this really strong 2v2 with the Lucian Nami. And if that's the case, Shogun and Rhino cannot play however they want. So I am really looking at this mid jungle for Western to potentially be able to fire back into Ole Miss and create advantages. But again, Kha'Zix Syndra is extremely scary in its own right. If Keel and Asila are able to get going and Asila is able to maintain push throughout this lane, I think this game is going to be extremely difficult for Western to win just because my expectation is that Shogo and Rhino should be able to dominate this 2v2 unabated.
And it goes right back to what our expectations were going into the series before we even started the draft for game number 1, where Ole Miss, I feel like Ole Miss versus Western and UST versus UHSP, which is also happening on the Salty Runback stream, have very similar, stories of like a top contender with top level players going up against this Cinderella run of players that really only play collegiate. But they've been going on a good run so far. They've been undefeated in terms of series so far in the national championship run. And I guess the difference is for UHSP specifically, or for these underdogs, is that they play their own game, and if they, even though they might kind of, not be as strong players, if they get to the team fights, if they get to the late game, they can be good. And so what these top teams have to do is really kind of punch them down, almost demoralize them a little bit in the early game. And Ole Miss have set themselves up with a really nice composition to do that here.
Yeah, I completely agree. And for Ole Miss, I mean, we've talked about it potentially going to winners finals with 2 chances to make it to Raleigh on what has been a long road to Raleigh for all these teams. That is prime position. And I want to talk a little bit more about kind of the tournament as a whole because Ole Miss came in as the 3rd seeded team by the committee. They're actually the 2nd seed because of all of the bracket shuffles to avoid NECC team kills with 4 NECC teams in the top 8 right now, by the way. And Ole Miss has had a really long season already, and they are expected to win the series, not just because it's Western, but because of how they have played throughout the year so far. And they absolutely want to have a handle on the series to prove that not only they can make top 3 like they were expected to, but Grapes, I think they want to prove they can not only make it to Raleigh, but potentially win it all. Maryville lost Yuji. It's Shimmer in the jungle now. The door feels like it is open for the CLOL trophy in 2025. We had thought for many moons that Maryville were the runaway, laughable favorites to win this tournament. And now we've seen them lose before, but it doesn't feel that way any longer. And you know that teams like Ole Miss, Fisher, UST, Winthrop, they look at that and they see it as an opportunity. And Ole Miss, they are the best poised to seize that opportunity given their matchup that they have right now. So I just want to set that expectation out there. This is not just a team that's trying to play to par. They want to exceed their limits, and it's something we've not quite see this team do throughout its history, but they've been very close to many times.
Yeah, there's a team that always has a lot of high expectations, but has not gotten there just yet in terms of their performance in the national championship specifically. Obviously, Ole Miss won the NACC back-to-back seasons, and had the high seeds going into the championships, but last year, going out in top 16 or going out in top 8 kind of unceremoniously after a really crazy reverse sweep from St. Louis, kind of just falling into that plot line, unfortunately for them. And in 2023, only getting to top 16. Obviously, this is a team that has some higher expectations than even those rosters of its past, bringing in Asila, bringing in Keel to kind of supplement the roster in the mid-jungle. And they've looked good so far in CLOL, that is to say, not necessarily in the NACL. But now that they have this opportunity, I agree. Door wide open. And even though none of the other teams really have stepped up and looked super great in their run, none of the other top 5 teams have really become like the next big favorite in a way. The fact that the door could be wide open. We've seen Northwood play competitive games against Maryville with Shimmer and Toasty in that starting lineup. I'm sure that is a very welcome sign for anybody who else is competing this year, knowing that that window might be once again open.
Yeah, and how open it is definitely up for debate. Grapes, I think both you and I would agree that Maryville are still the favorites to win CLOL, but they're definitely not so overwhelmingly favored, and that's the big thing that these teams are looking at. But while we're still waiting, I would love to talk a bit more about the other games that are going on right now. Particularly, we've touched on it already a little bit. UHSP against UST in the lower bracket, streaming on twitch.tv/saltyrunbackna as you're watching right now. This is a incredible matchup, in my opinion, as well. UST was unanimously or near unanimously considered to be the number 2 team heading into this tournament, dropping to the lower bracket, getting dropped by Western in an insane 5-game series. Western preventing the reverse sweep by clutching up in game 5. And now also almost falling to Purdue Northwest, subbing out their support for their coach in game 5. That coach playing now for the rest of the tournament, as we've heard, against the number 1 Cinderella story in this event, 19th seeded University of Health Sciences and Pharmaceuticals St. Louis, started in the lower bracket, the 3rd seed out of North Conference, and they are here in top 8 with an incredible opportunity to take down what looks like a weak UST and do the absolute unthinkable, knock out one of the big 5 in top 8 and move on to the top 6.
Yeah, UST was a team that I thought coming into this event, they haven't played much competition outside of CLOL, of their South Conference specifically, so as a 5-man unit, wasn't really sure of what they were going to be able to do, but given that they have won back-to-back national championships in the past, they're a very solid program historically, had some expectations that maybe they could be the team, the biggest threat to Maryville's potential dominant run, but that obviously did not look like it was necessarily the case, as they dropped to Western, actually, here in the upper bracket quarterfinals to fall down into the lower bracket, as you mentioned. And so after seeing them play a little bit shakier against Purdue Northwest and seeing what the Tactics have done so far, obviously this is their biggest test so far along their ride, where they've had to take down 2 top 10 teams, but not necessarily one of the top 5. Now it's really up to them to figure out, is this run going to be legit, or is it just going to end here in top 8? We talked about it I talked about it a little bit earlier on another show that I did, but UHSP are the first team from outside the top 16 seeds to qualify for top 8 in CLOL in the 32-team era since Converse in 2022. And those two squads are the only teams to have done it. Obviously, Converse made a run all the way into top 4 by taking down Michigan State in a best-of-3 in Los Angeles. But there's still hope for the Tactics. They're still alive. It's just going to have to come up against UST, who were the victors of that championship when Converse was in the run as well.
And dare I say, given the double elimination format, what UHSP has done might already be more impressive than the Converse run, the Bethany run, just because of how many more games you have to win. Again, they've beaten 2 top 10 teams. They won 3 best of 5s in the span of 5 days last week, including 2 of them being over top 10 teams. And now definitely the big question is, can they take down one of the big 5? Because that does feel like an extra leap forward. But with the form that UST has been on, it does certainly feel like a possibility. And man, what a story it would be for, I mean, yes, it is a scholarship program, but a very young scholarship program. They've got students there for doctorates and masters that just have a love for the game, particularly looking at the top side, J Rockets and Jame. I mean, we've gotten to talk extensively with them and seeing the excitement that they've had for making it as far as they have had in the 2025 CLOL Championship is amazing. But that's not the series we have right here. It is Ole Miss versus Western, game number 1, Onto the Rift.
Winner claims top 3. Loser down to the lower bracket to play up against the winner of Winthrop versus Northwood, which will be our next series up on the docket here on UniEsportsNA. And there it is, Hawk. That is a Hui top lane going up against the Rumble. We see him take the summon area. We see him in the teleport.
Hell?
We see him situated around the top side of the map. So we're in for a fun one, folks. It's going to get weird. It's going to get weird today.
Yeah, it is absolutely weird. You know what? I will reserve judgment until I see how it goes. Look, Dr. Calculus is a Rumble merchant, okay? If anyone knows how to beat this champion, surely it's the guy that plays it endlessly. So, we'll see how it works out, but, I mean, it just feels so vulnerable against this Rumble Kha'Zix. Yes, there's not any hard CC between this duo, but Rumble has slows, and there is enough damage between these two, especially post-level 6, to just blow up this way, even if a flash is available. Decalc going to need to be on his A game. And I think the more important thing for me is it just gives Ole Miss another lane to potentially attack. Again, bottom lane is the one that they really want to get going because it's Shogo and Rhino. But the Syndra, this Rumble, this Kha'Zix, anybody theoretically should be able to carry with a big enough early mid-game lead.
Well, you're the jungle main here, between the two of us here. So to talk about what this Kha'Zix maybe can do, what is Keel, where his power points? We haven't seen him necessarily very prevalent in the meta so far. I know Quacks, he's currently on the other stream. If he was in this game, he'd be loving it right now. But are we expecting early ganks, or are we waiting for him to scale up a little bit more?
The main thing about Kha'Zix is he is just one of the best early game skirmishers and duelists in the game. And he's got very good neutral objective control, specifically around early dragons, which if you're expecting your Lucian and Nami to have push early on into the game, stacking those dragons and forcing Western into early team fights can be really good as heavy trading comes down in bottom. So I'm expecting that to be the name of the game for Keel. Dragon control does have the 1v1 advantage over the Xin Zhao. It's very, very difficult to play later on, though, especially against the Lulu. You are fully relying on members of Western willfully isolating themselves, but Western has a composition that wants to stay grouped up. So it's definitely sort of later on, Keel would be waiting for somebody on Western to make a mistake to punish, as opposed to, I think, the champion really functioning in some sort of way.
Fair enough. We'll see how aggressive Keel wants to be in this pick specifically. As again, early game is where we are focused for Ole Miss. They have to make sure that they get off to early advantages because obviously the Western composition scales very well into the 35 minute mark. That's where we've seen Western really thrive in terms of how they're able to beat some of these top teams that we have in CLOL. So they've kind of over-indexed in it a little bit potentially, but we'll see if it ends up paying off or not. Depends on how safe they really can be. We've already seen some decent trading in the bot lane for Western, specifically against Shogo and Rhino, and it did force both of these bot laners to go for resets. So a small win overall there for Julian and Vince, who, of course, are not necessarily expected to win this 2v2, both by player name and by the champions that are currently they are piloting.
Yeah, I mean, again, I do want to make sure, like, common misconception is that Lucianami is just going to dominate the lane from the word go, which is definitely not true. Early levels are the time when Lulu and Jinx is actually stronger just due to the range advantage. You really want to get levels on those Lucianami, and it usually becomes much more of a mid-game oriented pick, because what Lucianami does is it doesn't let Jinx ever walk up to a mid-wave without getting threatened to lose half of her HP. So that's the point that Shogo and Rhino want to get to. If they can nurse even a small CS lead early on, they're very happy with their position in this game. But I do just want to point out as well, talking about the Kha'Zix grapes, it's a Harvey. So this is like an assassin Kha'Zix. Doesn't look like we're going to see any of those like bruiser Kha'Zix as we have seen from time to time. I know Quacks is an enjoyer of that build. Shout out. So Keel going full damage, going fully in on the offenses here. Again, Ole Miss, they want to try to go big and early and often in this game.
And when you have squishy backline carries that are relatively immobile, like the Hwei and the Jinx, makes sense to maybe go for a bit of an assassination pickup here. As you can already see, Stray having a decent time trading into Dr. Calculus, but actually having to sacrifice a little bit of CS to make sure he does get there. We are, by the way, quick update on the old patch right now, and that's where we'll be for the remainder of the championship. So no, Ionia map or anything like that. We're not on the Spirit Blossom patch. We have 2 spawns of grubs still, and speaking of, that'll be spawning in less than a minute, so it'll be interesting to see how these teams want to play for that. We already see Western's bot lane rotating up to the top side of the map to make sure that they have the numbers advantage in that department.
Ooh, I'm not sure how to feel about this lane swap because it is really leaving Dr. Calculus potentially in a dangerous position. Now, you do have the Galio ultimate if there was need for a cover, but I mean, 4 versus 1 against a Hwei under tower does sound a bit dangerous. Unsurprisingly, though, Keel just going to focus on that early dragon. That is the expectation that I have for the neutral objective focus early on. I think Western is fine to take the grubs. Grubs generally considered the better of the 2 neutral objectives early on, but I don't feel that this is necessarily some crazy grub comp, really, for either team.
Dr. Cactus is able to stay alive here in the bot lane. I think it would be worth it overall for Western. We do like to say that they play these late game team fights. There have been situations where teams have tried to teams were at an even state with Western. They lose one team fight, they run it straight down the mid lane and end the game. So having some extra grubs there will give them some extra pushing power if they want to try and play that way. So maybe a slight win from them there. But I think the bigger thing is that Ole Miss now have at least delayed the inevitable potential Dragon Soul stacking for themselves, and maybe even have the opportunity to play for it on their own. If they can stack up some Drakes, they can maybe force fights before Western get to their true spikes at 2-3 items.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I look at 2 teams that want to team fight really badly, I always love early dragon stacking just because you really do get to dictate the tempo of the mid game, and you have those side laning to be necessarily the biggest focus for either of these teams. But again, I think both teams are reasonably happy with how this went. We didn't see that bottom lane dive onto Decalc. He was completely fine. Does look like he had to drop a wave or 2. So really the actually only CS discrepancy we're seeing in this game is this Hwei being down a solid 17 CS.
And that's not nothing. And especially because as the Hwei, you want to pick up items, you want to get to stronger points in the game. Dr. Calculus was really left out to dry there. He had to play very safe underneath his 2 turrets while that dragon was going down, not wanting to die to that Lucianami lane. So he's now 2 levels down to Stray up in the top side. We'll see if that ends up becoming a bit of an issue for them. And I feel like still the turtling strategy has to be in effect here for Western if they want a chance to potentially get to that late game stage. We're seeing they're rotating the Nami here for Rhino up into the mid lane, maybe looking for a play onto Candy, but it doesn't look like really Western are too keen to fight for anything right now.
Yeah, but as the map does slowly start to open up, we can already see Ole Miss incredible amount of river control for them. And that's exactly what we wanted to see, is push in mid into controlling the river, making the map smaller for Western and giving Ole Miss the highway across Summoner's Rift to make plays faster than the opposition, take incremental advantages, and the more control they're able to have over the map, the more difficult it'll be for Western to approach early neutrals. And you can see, like, they don't feel confident enough to look for a fight on Akil, even in a potential numbers advantage, because they know that Asila is always going to be closer because he can just walk up river.
More trading here in the bot lane as well. The Aqua Prison does land on a Julian, and the Tidal Wave comes out, knocks up 2. So a little bit more trading there. Shogo does have the culling if they want to try to utilize it. As they continue to trade back and forth, the Flame Choppers comes out. Wild Growth issued here. Shogo all of a sudden is out of mana.
No
Could
mana.
be in a little bit of trouble. He does have the rocket still at his disposal. Julian can try to go for it. Asala has arrived. Rhino getting very low. Julian flashes forward. Gets first blood, but it's traded back by the Syndra. Finally, Shogo has unlocked the culling and will dodge away from the Winds of War. 1-for-1 overall with Keel on the chase.
Yeah, that 2v2 works for Ole Miss if Shogo has mana for the culling, but he couldn't kill the Jinx without that resource available, and it means that Julian's able to get first blood. Ultimately ends up being a 1-for-1 with Shogo retaining his flash and teleports burned by Western. So I think it's slight advantage to Ole Miss, but it's really big that the main hyper carry for Western was able to get one back.
Yeah, you see Julian working towards that collector first item. We've seen different iterations of the lethality Jinx. I don't expect this to be it. When we saw Julian play Jinx in the Eastern Conference Finals, got by the collector first, but turned that into more of a crit-oriented build later on. But you can see right now on the bottom of your screen, that is the lane that right now Western have a gold advantage in. And so that is a good sign to start things off. Obviously, Shogo Rhino on this pick, on this bot lane duo, will still have power, especially now that they've rotated into the mid lane. Yep, you're starting that snowball here, Hawk. You're getting towards that scaling composition that you want to unlock here for Western.
But we're not quite there yet, and you can already see Shogo able to chunk out Julian on the mid wave, force him out, and Keel. It's going to be an uncontested Void Grub. So it's still Ole Miss in the driver's seat in this game. You know, like I said, it was more resources burned from Western. The kill, to me, is a consolation prize. It does get them that much closer to the scaling, but the Sharks right now doing a really great job of just dictating the pace of this early game. They're going to be able to also play for this dragon spawn. At the very least, Western, with Ole Miss committed topside, will be able to retain some river control ahead of this objective if they wanted to contest it.
You see the second spawn of Grubs. They'll be up relatively shortly with that second dragon also spawning in about 5 seconds. Western actually do have inner workings around there right now, but Shogun Rhino should be able to recontrol the push eventually here. As the one area of the map that is not going well for Western right now is Dr. Calculus on the way top. Who could have expected It's not actually working out super well, especially when you get sent far behind like in the first 10 minutes of the game.
I will say, like, it doesn't feel like it's necessarily Hui Top's fault in the sense of, like, this guy didn't actually lane against Rumble for very long. And when he was against Rumble, the lane was actually about completely even, which to me still does not justify the pick, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, like, it just is... Dr. Calculus was the unfortunate recipient of the swaps as... Hold up.
More trading here. Tidal Wave does connect. Julian has the Wild Growth on top of Mishogo's culling already coming out.
Whoa.
And so chunking out this Jinx very heavily here in the mid lane. Julian does not want to stay for this wave because Keel is on the hunt. Crack it on here to at least make it an even fight if they try to dive. And so we'll spot him out with the Wind Becomes Lightning as well. So there will not be a continuation of that fight, but Ole Miss certainly have the ability to go for this dragon that is now about to spawn.
Keel did just use his ultimate. I am not really sure why. I don't think it matters too much. But that is a resource no longer available for Ole Miss. However, should just be Ole Miss getting that dragon again. Lucian Nami power forced that Jinx Lulu out. Really good trading. Shogo Rhino doing their job so far in this game.
Certainly, and that is what's getting Ole Miss the second dragon of the game. We haven't seen Keel go for any assassination of champions, but certainly has had his will and had his way with the jungle monsters and the neutral objectives on the map. So you can say that, at least for Keel right now, continuing to eat up these camps, get stronger and stronger, to get to the point where he can maybe assassinate a Julian or a Dr. Calculus later on into this game. But right now, Ole Miss, about 1,500 gold. Would you say this is kind of an okay position for them to be in, or are Western doing enough to kind of hold their own in terms of where they want to eventually be?
I think Western is not upset about how this game is going because they're not getting destroyed, and it's actually been a very quiet game. We've not been perma-fighting so far. But Ole Miss is absolutely executing upon their game plan. They're dominating the neutral objectives. They do have a marginal gold lead off of farm alone, and at some point, Western is going to have to fight, and I do think it will be before they're ready as Asylum picks up a solo kill.
That's that 2-level diff, baby.
Okay, now can I say that the Hui top sucks? Like, can I officially say that?
Again, it comes down to the fact that he was set really far behind and was 2 levels down to Asylum off of that play. As we get another calling issued here, Keel now jumping over the wall in the mid lane as well. Vince pops the shield, will be able to survive that tidal wave being issued. And so a nice play, but it doesn't find any results for Ole Miss. And again, I think it is largely the fact that the reason the Hui top is not as good is not because
it's
like,
bad,
that solo
right?
kill specifically, but there were other top laners that would have been able to withstand that pressure around the bot lane more. And because Top Calculus wasn't able to on that champion, that's why he's behind.
I think that's exactly what goes into my point. And this is actually an issue I have with drafting sometimes, especially at this level of play, is like, oh, Hui top, like I could play it in a Rumble, guys, but it's like if we're planning on swapping for grubs, we should not be playing Hui top. We need to play to the champions we're picking in the draft. And unfortunately, Hui did not get those resources. Credit to Asylum, though. He's trophying a little bit right now. 10 CS per minute. He's got a couple of kills, including the solo bolo. We've not really talked too much about Asylum as Julian. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, just eats that equalizer as well. There's no calling available here, but here comes a dash forward from Krakadon as well. They want to really try to save this tier 1 turret, but this is the power of that Lucian Nami here, Hawk. They've really gotten to that stage where you could just dash in onto the Jinx, chunk out half their HP, and then make it really difficult for them to play the map.
And they get a couple of summoners as well, and with the over-rotation being forced out of Western, Asylum, man, he's just able to take a full tier 1 on his own and the Raptor camp steal from Keel. They're getting real damn close to this tier 1 in mid. Next wave should be it for Shogo, unless Western over-defends again. But I want to bring up that point that I was going to make about Asylum. A lot of criticism has been thrown towards this player. He has been the biggest question mark on this roster, the one with the most to prove, and he is having a really great game so far. Has not necessarily had resources put towards him, but just has been in the right place at the right time. And
Julian already has to flash away. The hero's entrance comes out to try and defend the Jinx. The tower in the mid lane does go down.
Great scatter.
Stun lands on Shogo, but a really nice scatter of the week comes out from Asilla as well. Now Kraken wants to go in. Keel has to flash on out. Use the Shadow Assault to try to escape, and then Super Mega Death Rocket comes out, and Julian picks up the first kill of the fight for Western. Now Candy looking to dash in again with the Justice Punch. Another nice scatter from Asila prevents more disaster coming through from Ole Miss.
Yeah, a bit of an overforce right there from Ole Miss, as they do get the tower, but then they try to look for the fight. They just didn't have the resources. No equalizer, no culling up and available for that fight means that Western was able to fire back, and Julian does get another kill. This Jinx is relevant, but flashless ahead of the Soul Point Dragon fight. And again, it's the kind of thing where I think Ole Miss is executing upon their game plan. They've taken the mid lane tier 1. They've expanded their map control, and they're slowly but surely twisting the knife into this Western composition. But the Western's not been put away, and one mistake from Ole Miss could absolutely turn the scales of this game. Western, though, they're going to try to force Ole Miss's hand with Dragon's Soul Point spawning in 35 seconds. This feels a little over-aggressive to me, though. No ultimates on Western, save for the Wild Growth, and no flash on their Jinx.
Well, they are at a 4v5 right now, as Stray finally is going to utilize his teleport, but already Julian at half HP. Candy trying to do his best.
I don't like this.
The Rift Herald's at 5,000 health, and now Stray has arrived. Equalizer
Great
in hand,
equalizer.
and a beautifully executed ultimate will already chunk out Julian, and the first kill is already down, as Calculus has fallen. The Wild Growth is in onto the Kha'Zix. Here comes Skill, a double kill in the back line, obliterating the bot line here of Western Ontario, and Ole Miss find themselves the ace.
Yeah, and that's going to be the mistake that tilts the game, but it's not Ole Miss that make it. Western, you just can't force 5 versus 5. We finally see shades of that perma-fighting. Western, they get a kill on their Jinx, and they think, guys, we're strong enough to contest, but no, you're not. Your Hui is useless, and your Jinx does not have flash. Nobody has ultis. Ole Miss still had resources. Stray arrives with a beautiful equalizer, and we can take another look at this one. Keel, I want to give credit to him for his position in this fight, corralling Western into this pit and just playing on the edge of the range so well, biding his time. I think a lot of players would have gone over aggressive. He actually dashes out in order to just wait for his moment. Everybody gets low thanks to the AoE of this Syndra and this Rumble. Keel flies in to clean it up. Really nicely executed from Ole Miss to pick up the ace. And now they are very far ahead, nearly 7,000 soul point on the board. Western, they're just going to try to trade for gold on the top side of the map.
And this is now at the point where we can say Ole Miss have been able to find the advantages that they wanted with their mid-game focused comp. You have Shogo now on 2 items, Asylum now at 2 items, Keel now at 2 items. Absolute peak power right now for this Ole Miss squad versus where Western, not even close to where they potentially would want to be. They're going to trade for this top tier 1, but it's going to cost them potentially other areas of the map. The overstacking is going to at least try to focus a lot of gold into Julian, but it might come at the cost of Candy going down, and Shogo and Rhino just take him down with ease.
And it looks like the tier 2 dropped in mid, maybe while we were in the replay. So, Ole Miss, I mean, yes, they're going to lose an objective bounty, but it doesn't matter. They get so much back.
Julian, he's healing up nicely by the help of Vince, but still going to get taken very, very low here. Meanwhile, they're losing so many resources on the other side of the map for this play. 2 tier 2 towers are down. Asyla just continuing to get richer and richer, and now he's sending a TP into the top side to try to make this a fight here. It's going to be a long chase. Julian will be able to escape, and so now it's Crackdown and Vince, so we're going to try to be able to get on out of here. Vince does have the empowered recall due to the Rift Herald and will be able to escape, so it only will be Crackdown to go down here. And it does potentially set up an angle for the Dragon for Western, but their waves are just not in a good enough spot to try and force that objective.
Yeah, I mean, that's Jungler down. I actually really like that back row from Ole Miss as well. Not doing the Dragon, recognizing that, hey, Western is trying to trade for gold. Let's not let them. Let's get more gold of our own. So they take 2 tier 2s and then TP to punish Western's overreach on the top side of the map because they know they'll always be able to take this Dragon. There ain't a hope in hell that Western can contest them on this neutral, especially with Crackodon being down. So just take a quick reset. Everybody get your items, come back onto the map. Okay, now we can get a free Dragon, and the call for Ole Miss, now they've got 2. Push out mid and then move towards the top side for the last tier 2, or push out mid lane and bottom and go for the Otacon. It seems like the call is going to be the latter.
So Soul Point now, Chemtech Soul here for Ole Miss. Going to be useful, but maybe not the one that they could have utilized the best here. The Otacon certainly the next to fall. And Ole Miss in a good position to win this game. Again, we were mentioning the fact that Western has gone on all these magical runs, but now without Lynx as part of the team, we're curious to see what they would look like. I don't think Lynx being a part of the team is the reason that they're losing this game or not, but it definitely looks like this time Ole Miss are respecting their opponents maybe a little bit more than some of the other squads did. It's Julian just going to get one shot, 1v1 here by Stray. He goes down, but the Otacon was actually taken at the perfect time, which means that he was able to head back to base without actually going down.
Yeah, ultimately a pretty even traded gold due to the Otacon changes a few patches ago. But, I mean, obviously, Stray's still going to be happy as Crackodon. He might just be dead again. Does have Flash. He's going to be able to walk it out.
Should be able to escape. But the blitz continues here for Ole Miss.
TP.
They're going to send the teleport into the bot lane here for Stray. They want to push on 2 lanes at the same time with this Voracious Otacon buff. Want to make sure that these false lives are utilized to their absolute max potential. The mid lane inhibitor turret certainly going to drop here. We'll see when Western officially want to pull the trigger. Keel jumps forward, is taunted up by Candy, and so now has to back away once again. Western are now 5 strong once more. You see the Void Spikes doing a lot of damage here just in terms of the poke that Keel's able to provide. Another stun lands on Vince. They're going to give up this inhibitor tower for free. It's inhibitor, I should say. And now their focus is going to be down to the bot lane.
I've got to say, Grapes, we were saying that the biggest criticism of Ole Miss has been their indecisiveness in a lot of critical moments. They've just looked scattered in their decision-making in a lot of the games that they've played, particularly in the NACL, like we saw last night against collegiate rival Winthrop, and they've not really made mistakes this game. Any mistake has been very minute, micro mistakes, maybe giving over a couple of those kills, but that is about it. Ole Miss has been very clean in their game plan. They've looked like they've had a lot of direction as far as what they're actually trying to do when they're setting up for plays, which is a really good sign for this team that, again, we're not just wanting to see if they win this series, but maybe to see if they're a team that can contest for the entire CLOL 2025 trophy. Obviously, it is just one game, and I do think they had the better composition coming in. We'll have to see how they translate this across the entire series, but I mean, like, very clean stuff so far from Ole Miss. They look locked in.
And we'll see if that has an impact on how the rest of the series can go as well, because Western are a resilient team. They've gone the distance with UST, but we'll see if this might be one of the more one-sided losses that they've taken in the tournament so far, and how they'll be able to bounce back from it will be a fun story to watch. We're getting to the 2-item spikes here for Western, slowly but surely. We now have Trulian picking up the opportunity, so it is a full lethality Jinx build.
Fully a lethality Jinx.
I've seen this in certain Tier 1 leagues before. It makes sense given the composition on the other side. There's literally nobody who's building resistances on Ole Miss's team. So just go for the lethality, go for the one-shot, go for the resets. But I don't know if it's going to happen. The wallets are a little bit too fat right now for Ole Miss, and they're continuing the siege basically on all areas of the map, even without a major objective to fight for.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, like, okay, we're getting to 2-item spikes. Whoop-de-doo. We're down 10K. Ole Miss is getting to 3-item spikes. Sila's there. I mean, again, I want to give so much credit to Asila. I think he's played a really great game so far. Him and Stray. It's really been the top side of Ole Miss. It's been fantastic. I think Shogo and Rhino have done a lot in how they've dominated on mid-push and not let Julian play the game, but it's really been a full team effort from Ole Miss. I do want to point out, Asila lost Flash at some point very recently, so that is a major defensive resource no longer available for the mid laner of Ole Miss. We'll see if Western can punish.
Well, all of Ole Miss did group up for a reset to maybe play around this Baron that has spawned, but it will allow for Western to pick up this Tier 1 tower in the mid lane. They're going to walk straight into the waiting arms of Asila, though, who throws up the Unleashed Power on Dr. Calculus and forces the Seraph Shield to be popped, as well as the Wild Growth here for Vince. Two big cooldowns, and now Vince is going to be the target. Candy dashes forward, but the rest of his team's running away, and now Ole Miss are going to go for the separated targets here in the back line of Western Ontario, and it's just all too easy. A 5-0 ace, nobody even lower than 40% HP, and Ole Miss can just run it down mid and end this game 1 right here.
Yeah, Ole Miss just wiped Western off the map. A triple for Shogo and a really clean game for the Land Sharks. I asked the question and they answer. Ole Miss looks mad after losing to Winthrop yesterday.
Still, the death timers are short, but I don't think they're going to be short enough here, as on to the Nexus Towers they go in one of the more dominant games that we've seen in all of the 2025 College League of Legends Championship. A 26-minute obliteration of Western Ontario as Ole Miss take game number 1 of this series.
I mean, I am beyond impressed. Ole Miss, a team that has struggled immensely with their game planning and their ability to just put together clean, soundly constructed plays. And they just did it for 26 minutes straight. Again, I think a virtually flawless game from them. They understood exactly how their composition was supposed to function. And aside from a couple of little oopsies here and there where they dropped just 2 kills, like, I mean, the only thing that prevented that from being a perfect game was the first grub spawn, 2 kills, and then a couple of overloads from Western to take towers that they promptly lost, like, everything for.
Yeah, and so
it's pretty good.
The perfect
pretty good, man.
The perfect game.
Yeah,
it was basically pretty clean overall from Ole Miss, and for some reason, whenever we see them play in CLOL, it's seemingly much better than whenever they're in the NACL. I mean, even if you consider that these could be weaker players than a Winthrop squad that they played against yesterday, their setups were so much cleaner. Their objective control was much better. Their understanding of how their draft was just so much better here for Ole Miss. And if they play like that, they could be a threat to go deep into the CLOL National Championship. Obviously, they already have going into the top 6, but even further, a win here in this best of 5, as you've continuously mentioned, gives them 2 chances at qualifying into the grand finals for Raleigh in terms of best of 5s in both the upper and lower finals. So that's a good sign here for Ole Miss, as they are now up 1-0 and leaving Western questioning what to do next.
Definitely questioning what to do next, because another thing I want to point out to you, Grapes, is Western so far, they've gone up 2-0 in both of their series that they've played in this college championship. And so now they've already been punched in the mouth early, right? It's usually been about them going up early in the series and then kind of surviving it to win that 3rd game. They immediately need to go back to the drawing board and figure out an answer for Ole Miss, because it feels like a really solid game plan so far for the Land Sharks. But as we said at the top of the show, nothing but resilience for Western has been their story for 10 years now. And I have full faith that this team might just be able to rally and give us a show, but only time will tell.
And we'll see if they are able to bounce back here in game number 2. We're going to head into a short break here on the UniEsports channel. When we return, it'll be the draft between Ole Miss and Western for the second game. Welcome back to our continuing coverage of the 2025 College League of Legends National Championships. We have game number 2 about to begin between Ole Miss Esports and the University of Western Ontario. And Ole Miss won that first game very handily, looking poised to make it to their first ever winners finals of a CLOL championship. And Western have to fight back if they want to get their hands into that top 4 pool and potentially continue what has been a magical Cinderella run.
Yeah, I mean, Western, it's been magical so far, but oh, mama, they just met the Wicked Witch of the West. Ole Miss just spawned a Twister all over their house, and Western did not have a shelter. I can tell you that much, because that was a tough game one. I think it's fair to say. Ole Miss, full mid-game composition, and they played it basically to perfection. I was very impressed. And I do think I'm looking at Western to cook up something that's able to fight back earlier. Because, yes, this is a team fight-oriented team, but we had a checkbox for Game 1 draft, which was, can we perma-fight, yes or no? And the answer was definitely no on the last draft.
Well, we'll see if things change in terms of the strategy for pick ban now that Western has gone over to the blue side. Another note is that, I think Western never really played to the full strength of their composition. I think that grub rotation that they made really kind of ruined the game state for them, putting the way behind to Dr. Calculus. Yeah. And so, if you are going to play the Hui top, play around the Hui top, right? Try to feed it resources.
Let's just not play the Hui top. How about that? Can we just all agree? Can we all please agree that the Hui top was not the move?
Well, we'll see if they decide to pick it up again. I feel like Lovesick Candy can play it as well, but we'll see if that ends up being a priority. We have seen Calculus kind of deviate more into the mage plays as of late. He played a Kale in the Eastern Conference Finals. He played Aurora throughout his time in the NACL, and so we'll see if that continues to be a priority for him when that Rumble is banned away. I'm expecting a Rumble to happen here for Ole Miss, because otherwise it will be first picked by Western, no doubt.
Yeah, I would hope that's a ban that comes through. I'm trying to remember I think the last ban that we got last game was. Okay, interesting. They actually ended up banning the Vi. So this leaves a lot of things available. Ambessa was the other ban that we did see from Ole Miss last game. So maybe saying, hey, you can take Rumble, we'll take Ambessa, or vice versa. It's just up to Western.
Well, it looks like they could lock this one in here as we're counting down here on the first pick. Could also flex into the mid lane a little bit. I know it's not as popular as it used to be, but Western have gotten a little bit, creative with the way that they structure their drafts. But the Ambessa was banned away by Ole Miss in game number 1, so they seem to have high priority on it and will be picked up for them to start off this draft. What will the response here be for Ole Miss? Are they going to opt for some of the formulas that worked well for them in the last game? It looks like yes, as the Lushinami is getting picked up.
Right back to it. Now remember, this was picked with the Lulu showing last game. So this does leave open the opportunity for Western to pick a stronger laning enchanter. Something like the Karma does immediately come to mind. But, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Shogo and Rhino, they played one of the cleanest Lushinami games I feel like I've seen at this level of play. And so I don't hate them going back towards it, rather.
Yeah, I mean, it worked out well for them. They were able to execute the strategy of sending it in the mid lane, pressing the calling off of cooldown. That ended up, working out well for them. So we'll see if there's a better answer for it this time around for Western. The Sejuani going to get locked in for Krakodon, something he's played a lot in the tier 3 space. And we'll see what the final pickup is here. Going to be likely the Lulu again, as it seems that their priority is just putting Vince on something that he's very comfortable on. And I'm not 100% sure. I think that's been locked in. Okay, hold on. Not yet. We're still waiting it out here. Maybe
I thought that was actually picked.
Maybe some shout-outs to Calculus in the East Finals on the Kale, as we are rotating a little bit throughout here for Acela. The Yorick for Stray was something that he played very well against Winthrop in their game that they did win, and also whipped it out, I think, earlier on in the tournament against ISU. So not something that we've seen too much here in this CLOL championship, but definitely a pick that Stray is comfortable on as we head into the second phase of bans.
Yeah, I mean, Yorick always been a champion that's really good against high AoE, and we've been seeing it crop up. We also saw Prank on mainstream last week play a couple games of it.
Yeah.
I didn't really like it that much, but it is a pretty good character. So I'm content to see this one get picked up. I'm really curious to see how Stray does do with it. We have seen him play it a little bit, but it is just, again, another very pressure-oriented pick. Ole Miss wants to try to dominate on every wave at all stages of the game, and the Yorick just continues to facilitate that game plan against a composition that I feel stylistically is like exactly the same as what Western just had. I do like the adaptation for Crackedon. Just get onto the tried and true Sejuani. I've thought of this guy as a Sejuani Maokai player for many years, and we know he can do it quite well. It does just provide that baseline consistency.
As you head into the second phase, looks like top laners are still potentially being banned away, so it looks like Ole Miss are potentially thinking that this Mbessa could go mid, which is interesting to me. We've seen Mbessa Sejuani work well as a duo before. Obviously, you have the melee passives working with the permafrost, a lot of quick auto attack resets on this pick, which can go into either solo lane. Asila going to be the target here in the ban phase for Western. They take away 3 of his favorite mid laners, and we'll see what he wants to pick up here on R4, or if they want to maybe save that for the final pick.
I'm expecting an R5 to come here through here for Asila, but I can't tell if this is locked in because I got baited last time. Corki, I mean, double 80 carry, and then you can get something for Keel that facilitates that. Ivern is still open, and I mean, double Enchanter would maybe be a little crazy. I guess you need some hard engage. Maybe something like a Maokai. If you wanted to go more skirmish, you do still have access to Wukong's and Zhao, but I will say the Corki has not been something I feel like we've seen too much from Asila.
We've seen Candy play it. Especially, he played it 3 times in their series against UST. Ended up doing relatively well on it. So maybe a bit of a takeaway there, as it is going to be the Nyla locked in here for Julian to go alongside the Lulu. So going to be sharing some of that XP with the Lulu, get them a little bit further ahead in that department. And I think the final pickup here for Western is going to be the Renekton that sends Candy into the mid lane. Does mean that Western are very physical damage focused, but I think that'll be all right considering that there is a Sejuani on the other team. Can't really index too far one way or the other, but it does create a situation where there is a lot of short range champions here for Western, and it's going to be matched up really nicely with Keel locking in that Lilia here on 5.
Yeah, Keel going towards the Lilia is really interesting to me. I mean, it does justify the double physical damage solo laners that Ole Miss did lock in. And I will say, Ole Miss actually played the game last game without any clear hard engage. You know, it's kind of more so just big skirmish. The hard engage is forcing Western to come to you by dominating on neutral objectives. And that's the exact same gameplay on this time around. Little bit more side lane play. I think this draft is even more top side focused actually for Ole Miss than it was last time around with the Yorick Lilia coming through. That's a lot of ability to play for the Void Grubs and a lot of ability to skirmish, especially after level 6. On that top side of the map. Renekton and Mbessa, extremely strong with the Sejuani in their own right, though. So, definitely something we're going to have to keep track of. To me, though, Grapes, the big X factor in this draft, we've got the Neela coming through for Julian. I talked about this briefly in Game 1 draft as an option that could come out with the Enchanters, and it's been something we've seen from Julian to great success here and there throughout CLOL 2025, and it is a more aggressive option. This is the 80 carry of Western Ontario saying, we are going to fight perhaps the best bottom lane in CLOL straight up.
And we'll see if it ends up working out with the Neela pick. I love it in CLOL where you get players who, you know, are able to pick up unique champions that might not be super meta, but it works well for them. I think Julian really exemplifies that, whether it's with the Asol bot lane or even a pick here like the Neela, which is not popular at all in the meta right now. I feel like he's literally the only player I've seen play this champ the entire year. So it's worked out well for them so far. Western was on a very similar composition for their Game 5 win over UST that sent them to this stage of the tournament. And so, if it worked well for them last time, maybe it'll work well for them again this time. A lot more scrapping potentially on the table here for Western.
Yes.
Whereas Ole Miss, they still have the mid-game power spike with that Lucian Nami, but the scaling is going to still be there in the mid-jungle.
Yeah, let's bring up our checkbox here. Yes, we can perma-fight. We have double melee topside with the Sejuani. We've got Neela as well. Let's just friggin' run at these guys and see what happens. And still a lot of 5v5 power on the table. But to me, it's the fact that Western can actually match in these early to mid-game team fights. Now the big question is going to be, how can they stand up against the side lane pressure of Stray's Yorick? Ole Miss throwing another wrinkle, but at the very least, Western, in my opinion, adapting better in the Game 2 draft.
Well, here we go. Ole Miss, again, dominated that first game in just about 26 minutes. Not even time for a Baron to go down in that game. See if Western can put up a better fight this time around, even up our series potentially, and make things very interesting in our upper semifinals matchup. We got the Corgi to start things off. A nice little chroma skin as well for Silas. He's showing off his stuff a little bit before we get into the game.
Showing off his stuff indeed. I don't think you're allowed to play that skin and not do perhaps the best taunt in the entire game. Unfortunately, I don't expect camera to be mid too much early on into this one, just because I'm expecting Asila to have the early push given the melee versus range nature of the matchup, and I just think this is not the volatile lane to play around. To me, that really is bottom lane. Unlike last time, I think, yes, while mid jungle is still important to be able to influence that 2v2, like Julian going for the Nila does just inherently make bot lane more dangerous for everybody involved, and Shogo and Rhino are really going to need to be on their A game to make sure they're dictating push well, not allowing big trades to go over, and keeping Julian and Vince under tower. Because if this Nila is able to fight back early on, it could be a really big problem for the Land Sharks.
And Shogo and Rhino, this storied bot lane, almost like a veteran bot lane that it seems like they've only been playing together forever, even though it's only been like 2 years at this point, I believe.
They've played a lot of games together, though.
Yeah, it's across OQs. And now, you know, CLOL as well. But specifically for Shogo, this is a guy that is a defending or is a reigning CLOL champion. He's won twice with UST, but transferring over to Ole Miss has not found that same level of success so far, even though individually we've still been impressed with how he's been able to play things out. And so a lot to prove here for this player, as he has a chance to get the farthest place that he's gotten since 2023 when he did lift the trophy at the Riot Games Arena just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I know I personally felt that on that Ole Miss team last year, Shogo played well enough to perhaps lift the crown again. Oh, Julian. Yeah, okay. That's the trading I wanted to see right there from Shogo and Rhino. Really good bullying of this Nila, going to force the early base and maybe even interrupt it with the piercing light. No, not quite, but yeah, I felt individually this bottom lane played well enough to potentially lift their crown again. I remember still Game 5 Shogo against Slew in a position where it felt like he could stave off an entire team on his own. It just didn't quite happen, but you know that sticks in a player like Shogo's mind to perhaps redeem himself for next year. But to transition a little bit, Grapes, top side of the map, Keel went for an invade, so now Krakodon has nothing to do except for potentially look for a top dive, but Stray is keeping the wave really well positioned in front of his tower, making this Sejuani pretty homeless, Grapes.
Yeah, gonna have to find some sort of play across the map in order to neutralize the game state a little bit, because right now Keel has gotten himself off to a massive lead.
He's very
combined
happy
with the fact that Shogo and Rhino are ahead in the CS department in bottom. It is right now a 500 or 600 gold lead overall for Ole Miss, all things considered. It's evened up just a little bit more here, as Krakodon is looking for a play on that top side.
I mean, again, this is the only thing he can do, but Stray knows this. This is the veteran presence of Stray in the top side. I've had a lot of criticism for how Stray has played individually, especially in the lane phase recently.
They're going for it anyway. Here we go. Nicely stacked permafrost here. Stray getting
gets
very
out!
low. He throws out the E, and he will survive. It's first blood picked up for the Yorick.
So well played by Stray. Now, Dr. Calculus maybe can go for it if he has a slice and dice.
Waiting for that W to come off of cooldown. Now it's available, but he's out of rage, and Stray with the biscuits, just healing right back up to full HP. Meanwhile, on the bottom side, Rhino taking very low, but Shogo's gonna answer right back. The double tap here, combined with the shield, Swirl Sleeve goes wide. Shogo dashes forward. Julian finally will go down, and Keel has finally arrived to the bottom lane play as well. It's gonna be Vince trying to find one sort of trade back, but it will not be able to find it. That's Feats of Warfare in for Ole Miss as they once again strike in game number 2.
Oh my goodness, that is a disaster early game for the Western Legends, as, I mean, Krakodon felt like he had to go for that top play, but he can't. Stray understood the assignment, and even if, as I was going to say, his individual level of play hasn't quite been there, he still has the presence of mind to make the right decisions in the moment. Avoids the dive, gets the kill for himself, and on the bottom side of the map, you have to respect the hustle from Julian and Vince. Again, it is a volatile bottom lane matchup, but they just do not have the support of their jungler. Julian goes down 2v2 Vince falls shortly thereafter. Ole Miss is already running away with this game. And again, it's two volatile compositions that want to permafight in the mid stages. That lead is going to sting.
It has the magic run out here for Western. Again, they were able to take it to a couple of these top teams. Two of the big five, as we have been calling them here. Winthrop, then UST. Two teams that have previously won CLOL. But clearly not happening here in this series just yet. Now, Western always have that late game magic in them, as we have continuously harped on, but Ole Miss are very happy with how this current game state has situated itself. Now that Stray has the Maiden up at his availability, can use it to get a little bit of extra prio around these grubs. Ole Miss are eating good right now the first 6 minutes of the game.
Yeah, and we wanted to see Ole Miss get those grubs. Oh, Keel's already level 6!
Yeah, hits the lilting lullaby. Calculus does pop the dominance in response and will be joined by the rest of his team. Heals up nicely with that empowered Q. And Candy now has arrived to the fight, looking to lock down Stray, and Western will answer back. It'll still be 2 grubs overall for Ole Miss, but at least Western get a little bit back here in this fight. They get a kill and make sure that not all 3 go.
Yeah, I mean, that was well played by Dr. Calculus. Keel with a super early level 6 due to the lead that he did have in the jungle camps, and hits it off the grubs. They try to turn on the Renekton, not quite having the damage to one shot, and we do see just a little bit of that indecisiveness from Western. You know, Stray tries to kite down towards Asyla. Keel runs up. Yorick ends up dying for it, and Western's able to deny one of those small void grubs. So that is a win for the Western Legends. It's something to keep them relevant in this game.
Will it be enough here? That is going to be the question. As we do want to shout out one of our sponsors here at the CLOL Championship, and that is, of course, Exit Lag, where you can, of course, download it to reduce lag, connection instability, and packet loss for a smoother gaming experience. You can use the coupon GGWP on their website to get a bit of a discount there. As back into the game we go. Asyla, very, very low on mana. Actually, it's a flash away from the public execution of Candy, and Keel is on the way, so that's why he was playing this aggressive. But another trade that is going well for Western.
Yeah, maybe an ill-advised Valk forward. A straight no flash. He's dead.
Probably in some trouble here. So shout out to Western. They're finding plays. Krakedon surviving that early deficit that he was put himself in, and now able to get 2 kills onto the Western solo laners.
Yeah, Krakedon, or rather Calculus and Krakedon getting things going up here on the top side. Calculus is the only player on Western in the NACL. So, in a pretty good top matchup, I think we were expecting that Calculus should be on a level where he is able to contest with Stray in the 1v1, and we are seeing that so far. 1-0-1 on the Renekton definitely can be a big threat. And again, maintaining some of that skirmish power for Western Ontario. They just need to make sure that for any fight they rock up to for this mid game, they are at least able to contest without getting wallet diffed right off rip. That is the position it looked like things were going to be in. So good on them to get stuff back. And it does force lane swap out of Ole Miss as well, getting their Lucian Nami into the top side of the map, maybe to try to punish this Renekton.
Okay, well, answering right back would be nice, as Shogun Rhino have rotated up to the top lane. Calculus barely has even time to issue a single spell, as the sleep puts him to sleep, and Ole Miss are right back on the board.
Well played right there. Calculus, his flash was back up in like 3 seconds. It's up now after he died. It was so close, but Ole Miss was able to punish. Stray, the disadvantage of the Neela is that it can't really punish this solo laner farming on a tower because you're melee. It's a dive if you're going in, and Julian knows this. He's able to pick up the entire wave. Is Stray and Shogo free time on the top side. Ole Miss, after a couple hiccups, still not missing a beat, but Western, they get a dragon for their trouble. So still, we do see conscientious trading across the board.
Western has stabilized at the very least here, as it does cost them a couple of plates up top, but Calculus and Vince actually rotating up here to make sure that the Renekton is able to farm out just a little bit more. Keel, though, has been maybe singled out a little bit here by Krakedon. He does have the Glacial Prison at his disposal, going to use it to try to buffer with the Eep, so Keel with a nice job to escape. And it was just the Sejuani, really, that was in range, so not going to be able to find anything more. Overall, still, though, despite the fact that we are feeling like it's a little bit closer, it's still a 2,000 gold lead here for Ole Miss, and now Julian getting pressured very heavily underneath this tower.
And that bottom lane matchup was the one that we signaled as being the most... Oh, Keel.
Gets stunned up again, but remember, does not have the ult this time. Julian flashes in, the Apotheosis is flashed away from, though. And so Western unable to find a kill there. Asila roaming down nicely to pick that one up, as in the top lane, it's Shogo and Rhino taking down Calculus at the same time.
Oh, man, Western, they immediately lose kills. Julian, he wanted to get himself back into the game, but Keel still had the flash. One more auto would have gotten him, but Julian, he used his own flash just to get into the fight. And it was a great wall from Stray that kept the Neela from being able to chase. Now, I mean, with Calculus dying in the top side, again, as I was about to say, this bottom lane was the important one. It's just Shogo so far ahead in this game.
30 CS, 3-0 and 0. Full Essence Reaver already in inventory here for him and working towards that second item very, very quickly. Gonna pick up the entirety of that first tower as well. So Ole Miss in a great spot in terms of where they have their star player, that gold lead, ballooning up to 4,500 at this point.
Yeah, Shogo's having a very good series so far, as is Keel. I mean, again, really all of Ole Miss, I think, is playing quite well today. Yes, Stray has given over a couple kills in this game, but I don't think those have been entirely his fault so far. As Keel, who's picking who?
Sleep here. It's on to Julian. Gonna dash forward though. Pop the wild growth here for Vince. And so Keel all of a sudden has used a lot of his spells and could be in some trouble in the 2, now 3v1. The poly connects. Will the gap be able to close though? As
Lulu,
that's a fast Lilia. Be able to yeet himself on out of there and head back to safety by popping that thumbs up emoji.
Yeah, they just didn't have the CC, and I said Lulu, but I meant Lilia. Lilia with the big movement speed. Keel just able to walk it out. And at the very least, they do get the Lilting Lullaby off of him. It is traded for the wild growth. Grubs are on the map, and Keel was quite low. Maybe he can heal off the jungle camp. Shogo and Rhino, I mean, they just have so much control over the map. They can walk up to this tower without much fear.
Yeah. Finally has that wave cleared out, though. Top side, there's a bit of bottom side there. There's a fight between the two top laners, I should say. Talk to Calculus. Whoa. Has that Fury continuing to rage up here. Stray with one more Q, though. Could be able to take him down. Forces the flash out of Calculus. And the Maiden will do it anyway. Another kill picked up for Ole Miss in a solo fashion, as it's now 7-2 across the map.
And, I mean, this game just feels like it might be over, Grapes. Western does not have the answers. You can't be getting solo killed in the matchup that we felt was turning as the ultimate goes wide. Shogo on the edge of the range.
Barely unable to find it. Julian still looking for some sort of play. Lands a 2-man Apotheosis, trying to lock down Keel, but still, the Lilia is too fast. Finally, they'll try to shut him down, and they do, as Julian gets himself the gold. The culling is canceled by Kakadon, as Shogo no longer has his ultimate at his disposal. It's a 4v3 across the map, but the health bars are on Ole Miss's side. Kakadon at less than 100 HP, very, very low here. Vince on the wrong side of things, getting flashed away from by the Lucian, and Shogo goes on a rampage.
Ends up being a 1-for-1 at the end of the day. At the very least, they do pick one up for Julian on Keel. Feels like this Neela and this Lilia have been doing battle for the last few minutes, Grapes. And finally, the Whip Lady has killed the deer.
Just one. And we'll see if that continues into more here for Western. Again, we continue to say this here. Western, they continuously win games from seemingly unwinnable situations. They're down to 6,000, 7,000 gold. Then they win a fight, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh, hold on. But this is a big deficit to try to come down from Huck. It's 6,000 gold for Ole Miss.
Yeah.
They have Shogo right now, their best player, at 4 kills, nearing that second item, the Infinity Edge. It's gonna get tougher and tougher as we continue to go throughout this mid game here, and I'm not sure if Western have it in them to pull off this late game comeback.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so hard. Shogo is 2 items on this Lucian at 15 minutes, and no one can contest a mid-wave because Western has 0 ranged characters in their composition, unless you count the Lulu, right? But at the very least, they do have setup over this dragon, but this is the problem. Shogo can just go in.
There goes the culling. Vince going to go down just by that ultimate alone. The sleep also lands on a Julian, who is pretty underleveled in this situation, but here comes the re-engage. Apotheosis lands on a 2. Western have taken down kill, but Dr. Calculus is still dominant on the front line, but finally get taken down. It's a double kill for Asila, and Shogo continuing the chase here on to the Nyla, who no longer has that ultimate at her disposal. We'll be able to use the blast cone to get on out of there, but Ole Miss still continue to find fights.
I mean, it is just so difficult. I really respect it. Western, they're saying, hey guys, we can take river control. We can force Ole Miss to fight into us, but it just doesn't matter because West dive comp anyway. And I mean, they're just not able to find the AoE damage on the multiple members. Keel goes down, but that's about it.
I think we're having some technical issues here. Apologize for that as we're back into there. And it looks like another 1-for-1 kind of happened across the map. Shogo's going to pick this one up as well. So in the time that we had that slight delay here, at least on our screens, I don't know exactly. It's 2-for-1 overall in favor of Ole Miss. They continue to add on to their lead. It's about 8,500 right now.
It ends up being a 1-for-2. I didn't really see the setup to that play. I completely froze for about a minute or so. But it seems that Ole Miss is just continuing to exercise their lead. And I don't know, Grapes, how are you doing today? I feel like there's not really much to talk about right now because Ole Miss is just they're in a very good position to win this game, similar to last time.
Yeah, doing good. We'll get a watch them CLOL as it is fun as we get to the later stages of this event. We're getting more and more of these kind of top tier matchups going. Obviously, there's a lot of upsets that have happened in this bracket, which is very exciting. But when you get the two heavy hitters going at it against each other, even in this setting where it's Western against Ole Miss, like the historic nature of Western is always going to be fun to watch here. As we have another bit of a freeze on our screen right now. Yeah, I think overall the fact that now we've gotten it down to the top teams, it's going to make it a really fun conclusion to this event on our road to Raleigh, as we've been saying.
Speaking of upsets as well, UHSP narrowly falling to USP in 45 minutes in the first game of that series a little bit ago. So definitely some fun ones going on right now, but the two underdogs on the back foot at the moment. Western much more so as it is going on Julian.
Very far forward here on the Nyla. Gets hit up here by the Swirl Seed. Not going to get used to sleep. And now Asila actually going to be the target here as Candy going on top of him. And that's going to be Kraken on shutting him down. It'll be 2 men going down in response, though, as Shogo just obliterating this mid-game team fight. A triple kill already here for the Lucian. Calling already utilized, but he's going to dash forward to try to take down Candy as well. The blast cone sends Candy right to his doom as only Calculus is left to try to stop the might of Stray on this top lane, who, by the way, was pushing the entire time. Already was a 4-kill fight picked up here for Ole Miss. And they're not going to find it yet. Braided here as Calculus going to try to find an answer.
Oh no!
He will get the kill on the Stray, but guess who's here? It's the king of CLOL. It's Shogo hunting him down. Legendary on the Lucian.
10-0-3. That was a 4v5, by the way. Ole Miss fighting without their top laner just because they can. It feels like Western, they've always been able to execute the dive onto one member, but not more. And I mean, even though they get Asila, they cannot win without getting the King of Shogo's just gonna live.
Almost able to find that kill, but it just wasn't enough. You can see the item difference at this point really coming into play. Shogo jumping up to 11-0 in this game. So we get another look at that replay to see just exactly how that went down. Again, they found the kill onto Asila, but Shogo was left untouched the whole time. Yeah,
and again, this dive cup of Western, they've been able to execute it onto a single multiple times, but Julian on this Neela has just not been able to get involved. The Apotheosis hit nobody, and Shogo critically was not the target, and he is by far the most important on this team. No pentakill because Keel stole it like a scumbag, and also Calculus TP'd away, dishonorable. But I think ultimately Shogo not too pressed about it. He's still got at least another game to try to get one. Would be back-to-back pentas, actually, for the AD carry of Ole Miss.
Yeah, had one against ISU, as you did allude to right there. Zobikiel picking up this dragon as well as we reset things at the 20-minute mark.
Only their first dragon of the game.
Their first
Western
got the first one earlier on.
Oh, right, yeah.
Looks like Julian's dead again as well
Yeah.
in the mid lane.
Dude, yeah. I mean, who put Slayer in a AD carry for Western, man? That's shout out.
I don't even know if he's watching this right now here. As again, more collapses here happening here for Ole Miss. They're going to be running away with this game number 1 relatively easily. And we'll see if they end here on this push. I don't think that's going to necessarily happen. They're going to start up the Otacon instead.
So that was kind of a cool interaction, though. I'll give Candy some credit. At first, he Mbessa ulted away, and I'm like, that doesn't work. Mbessa ult out. But I think he buffered the Unstoppable through the sleep of the Lilia, because he didn't fall asleep. So actually a really nice interaction right there from Candy to be able to get away. And not one that I was familiar with. So that is at least something. But it feels like they are already 6 feet into their grave, and Ole Miss is digging dirt on top of them by picking up the Otacon and those flowers. It is a 12,000 gold lead. Shogo 3 levels up on Julian. He's probably just going to send it here.
Just 20 minutes in the game right now. I mean, you might as well just go for another fight. Julian just gets obliterated here. He does survive a little bit more with the Apotheosis and the Wild Growth, but will not be able to finish off the kill. Now a 3-level lead has actually opened up, and there goes Candy, flashing forward with the E, and taking down Shogo at last.
All right, maybe a little bit of ego right there from Shogo. It was 2 versus 4. Finally goes down. Dr. Calculus, though, no way out. So Ole Miss can trade it back. Asila still extremely strong. Stray pushing in bottom as well. Somebody's got to deal with that Yorick.
Yeah, he's gonna keep on pushing. It's gonna be tough, as no Baron on the map just yet. So not another objective for Ole Miss to fight for. They finally do get a shutdown here onto Candy, who is at 2 items. But that just feels like cope at this point. I mean, this is just a purely dominant win for Ole Miss at this stage of things, and Western gonna have to pull off what they had to potentially be at risk of doing in series past, and that's to reverse sweep a top contender here like Ole Miss. It's gonna take a lot to try to do that, and we'll see if it can be done, and if not, it'll be them heading down to the lower bracket potentially for a rematch of that matchup against Winthrop University.
I mean, I would love to entertain that story of what if Western reverse sweeps Ole Miss, but I'm gonna be honest with you, right now, not looking possible, because Ole Miss has just been the better team so far today. Western would need to come back if they completely
Candy getting knocked up. Oh, buffers it here with the public execution.
Okay, Candy. Not bad.
We'll be able to escape.
I mean, they're going to lose their tower, but, you know.
Hey, he stays alive. You know, that's respect, you know?
Yeah. Hey,
you take
the
KDAs
win.
a little bit. As that might be what Candy's trying to play for at this point in the game. As Ole Miss, even without the Baron, still looking to push open this mid lane. Again, another super clean game that they have played overall. Looks like Calculus pushing on the top side, able to pick up that top tier 1, but is soon going to have to rejoin his squad, as already Inhibitor has been broken open in the bottom lane.
I feel like right now we're watching like University of Loyola Chicago. They've made it to the Final Four. Oh my God, everyone's so excited about them. And then Duke just like reminds them that they're still an 11 seed or something. Like I feel like that is what we are watching right now. Western, it really has been a valiant effort from them, but it just has felt like so far in this series, Ole Miss has really been so much better.
Oh, here goes a big engagement. Keel in some trouble. He had to flash away. Somehow survives with the help of Rhino. The healing just too good on this Nami. And Shogo gets himself a double kill. Looking for more. Calculus will flash on top of him. Candy looking for the public execution, but will not find the primary target. And that'll be it here in game number 2. Another dominant performance here for Ole Miss. And an even faster game time than game number 1. They will go up to match point against the Western Legends.
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss is just running away with this series. Shogo and Rhino, back-to-back Lucian Nami games, back-to-back carry performances. Asila's having a great series. Keel's having a great series. Stray is having a great series. And Ole Miss is poised to go to winners finals with one more game to do it.
I know a lot of the expectations for Ole Miss were that they were going to be a top 4, top 5, top 3 school. But to see that angle of being in the top 3 of CLOL so close to you has to feel so good if you are an Ole Miss fan or a player or a member of that organization. The amount of work that they put in over the past couple of years to get to this point, starting to seem like it's coming into fruition. Still some work to be done, though, both in this series and in the tournament overall. But you can see the efforts that they have been making really paying off as, again, it really seems like everybody kind of finally looking like the Ole Miss that we were hoping to see at the start of the season.
Yeah, I really do agree. I mean, let's say too, I do think the NACL warps our perceptions of Ole Miss just a little bit because they've looked so bad in that league, right?
Yeah.
But there are only two teams that have beaten Ole Miss in CLOL 2025 in any competition, and that is Winthrop University and Fisher College. Two of those big five schools. And to even add some spice to the pot, Fisher beat the Ole Miss with Icelandic instead of Kiel, and how much you think that matters is absolutely. But there is one team that has beaten this iteration of Ole Miss. It is their biggest, the Winthrop Golden Eagles, and for Western, they may be able to beat Winthrop, but nobody beats Ole Miss except for the Eagles themselves, and that seems to be holding true so far in this series.
And even though we could have gotten that matchup in the lower bracket if Ole Miss lost tomorrow, it looks like we're going to have to be a little bit more patient and hope that Winthrop continues to make it through the bracket to either get a matchup in the lower finals or the grand finals if things continue to be the way that they have been for our friends over at Ole Miss. But backs against the wall now for Western. The game plan that they have tried to go for has not worked. They have not even gotten to 30 minutes in a game where they could even try some of their late game team fighting. So things are going to have to be adjusted for them. We'll see what they are, and we'll see if Ole Miss can close out this series when we return here on the college championship coverage on UniEsportsNA. We'll have the draft for game number 3 up for you in just a few. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to game number 3 of our upper semifinals matchup of the 2025 College League of Legends National Championships. We have Ole Miss currently up 2-0 over the Western Legends of the University of Western Ontario, and things have not looked so good for our Canadian superstars. Hawk, another fun story here as we prepare for the draft of game number 3. Coach Collimer, throughout his time at Bethany, throughout his time at Ottawa, throughout his time here at Ole Miss, never lost to a Canadian school. He doesn't want to make that happen here again. This guy owns the Canadians, as he justifiably always says.
He also didn't lose to Apex Mission Impossible in the NACL, so maybe it
True,
really
actually,
does
yeah.
hold some water. We've been talking all day about how Ole Miss has struggled in the NACL, but they've been so good in collegiate play, and that trend has continued as Western has fought valiantly, but it does just truly feel like Ole Miss has been a cut above. And it's so shocking because Western is the only team that has beaten one of the Big Five so far in this tournament. But they have looked, just downright uncompetitive against Ole Miss. And I think a big part of that, I want to give most of the credit to Ole Miss because it does just feel like they have executed their game plans and their compositions so well throughout this series, but it definitely does leave me with concerns about how Western is actually going to bounce back. Because if we expect that Ole Miss has the individual talent and they're playing well together as a team, which has been their issue throughout the season, where does Western win games if not for magic?
Magic might have to be magic might have to be what they're turning to right now. It's called a Cinderella run because for one night only, for just that little period of time, all of a sudden these guys can put on the glass slippers and become the best team or compete with some of the best teams in the world, in the country here. And that's what Western are looking to turn to for one last time. Or the clock has struck midnight on that, and we are headed back to Ole Miss taking care of business as per usual. As we're on to the draft for game number 3. Bans remaining very consistent across the board, but however, the Lucian has now been taken away from Shogo, so the bot lane here for Ole Miss are going to have to pilot something a little bit different.
Yeah, to continue the extended metaphor as well, they did lose their fairy godmother in Lynx, but who knows, maybe they can take away the moral of the Cinderella story and find the power within them at the end of the day. Westerns definitely need that big step up, though. We saw a Neela composition last game into the Lucian Nami, and it didn't work. I love the adaptation of banning away the Lucian. This has been a problematic pick for Western throughout the series. Ambessa ban signals to me, guys, let's just take our Rumble for Dr. Calculus and let's put Shogo on something else. Hopefully that's less oppressive.
And hey, we got Calculus on his Rumble, so that is one of those power picks that have been what has given Western a lot of success. Calculus has experimented with some other picks in the series so far, the Ambessa, and then, of course, the Way. But now on the Rumble, hopefully will give himself a little bit more comfort. It'll be matched up against here by an Aurora combo with the Xin Zhao. Curious to see if they will try to bring that Aurora up into the top lane to match up against the Rumble and try to give him a little bit of a more difficult laning phase, or if that'll be just going towards the Syla in the mid lane.
Yeah, I'm expecting this one to go top side for Stray here, but it definitely could go in towards mid. I think this is absolutely a flex pick. Quirky pick, though, this to me has generally been more of a candy pick than a Chulian pick throughout time. Oh, it wasn't. I can't tell if they're hovering things or if they're locked in yet. Okay. Well, either way, I'm going to pretend I didn't just talk about that. And we're instead going to get a champion that can skirmish much more effectively than that Corki. The Ahri to pair alongside the Pantheon for Krakedon. It feels like as we're going, slowly but surely, we're seeing more volatile compositions getting locked in for Western. Game 1 was full scaling, and they got eviscerated. Game 2 was like a hybrid scaling, like a little bit of a hands check comp. It didn't work. Game 3, guys, let's just all press a button on one person. Let's just keep simplifying the equation. And to look at the checkbox, so far, it's a composition that can permafight.
Will it be able to scale, though, is the question. As we're headed to the second phase of bans, the Azir picked up here for Asilla. I would love to see something like the Aphelios come out for Chulian. It was one of his strongest picks throughout the Eastern Conference season, and I feel like it would maybe bridge the gap into that late game a little bit if you are Western, and can maybe turn this team into a more team fight oriented composition. It can work well with any of the enchanters that Vince might want to play, although I wouldn't be surprised to see a Lulu takeaway here from Ole Miss to round out the second phase of bans. As for the other side of Ole Miss, they're looking for a bot lane as well. What other hard carry or dominant 2v2s could we see from Shogo and Rhino? Will it be something like the Zyra Khan, a Kaisa Nautilus? There's still a lot on the table. It looks like it's not going to be that with the Nautilus banned away by Western.
It's really hard to predict what Shogo's going to play because Shogo kind of plays everything. But I will say, like, if you really want to win the lane, something like a Callista could be an option. Draven, we've seen from Shogo in the past. You mentioned Zyra Khan, I think, is definitely a strong option. If we just wanted to go a little less early game focused, you've got plenty of stuff like Kaisa, Zeri. The Lulu lock-in, to me, facilitates more of a hyper carry for Shogo, with the early game focus perhaps being a bit more towards the top side of the map this time around.
And so does that mean that could give a team like Western a little bit more in terms of angles back into this one, right? Like, will they be able to survive the laning phase, survive the onslaught that Shogo and Rhino have put down? We'll see, because they are locking in a Zerayumi here for Chulian and Vince. So they are fully indexing into that late game. It'll be full topside scrapping, late game scaling here in this game 3.
I hate it, man. I hate it so much. Oh, Tristana! Talk about late game scaling! This has been one of those flavor of the month picks. Now, it is a little bit shorter range early on, but Zeri not exactly the champion that can punish it in the lane. And if there's one thing to know about Tristana, it is that champion scales up to have the safest and highest single target late game DPS out of any champion basically in the game right now. You throw a bomb on somebody and you hit them from a whole screen away with your level 18 max rank draw a bead, and Shogo going to be very difficult to deal with. It also gives playmaking potential, which is something I always personally like to see on this player, and a Lulu behind to allow him to play however he wants. You've got great front line with the Xin Zhao, good skirmish potential. I'm going to be honest with you, Grapes. I feel like Ole Miss, yet again, I just like their composition better because they have a winning top lane, a stable bottom lane with hyperscaling, and it just doesn't feel like Western have the tools to break this game open unless they can really get something going on the top side of the map.
And that's where they absolutely have to focus their attention here with the Rumble. Finally, a comfort pick here for Dr. Calculus. Candy's been good on the Ahri throughout the year as well. Still some potential options here for Western to get into this game, get themselves back into the series, as they certainly are not in a good spot right now. They are down match point in this series, 2-0 up against Ole Miss. Obviously, still a chance in the lower bracket after that. It could be a rematch with Winthrop University down there if they do get to that stage, and if Winthrop are able to win their series against Northwood, which is happening right here after the conclusion of this one, by the way. But if you are Western, at least maybe even getting a win, or at least playing a competitive game here before going down, it'll have you feeling a little bit better about yourself going into tomorrow.
Exactly. I mean, Western at least wants to show something, right? Especially because, they are playing with a substitute, right? Like, you want to feel like you can still be competitive against the top of the table teams, because at this point, that's all that remains. And while Ole Miss feels like they're closer to the top than the bottom out of these 8 teams, I agree. You want some confidence heading into tomorrow if you are Western. But to give a quick game break as well, Maryville University currently up 2-0 after a couple of one-sided victories over Fisher College on the other side of the upper bracket. So Maryville, the probable opponent for whoever does end up taking the series, whether or not it's Western on the reverse sweep of dreams or Ole Miss in a clean sweep. And on the bottom side of the bracket, UHSP backs against the wall. It might be 2 Cinderellas getting silenced today as St. Thomas is up 2-0. But the fact remains, in our series here on UniEsportsNA, Western backs against the wall. Early game for Candy and Krakodon. Responsibility on them to break this game open and send Ole Miss to a game 4.
Well, let's do it. Here we are. On to the Rift we go. Western need some sort of miracle to make their way into the winners finals right now, but it starts with a win here in this game number 3. We've seen the Pantheon jungle have some really solid performances, both from Crackodon, and also I want to shout out U13, who had a tremendous game on this pick against Northwood just a couple of days ago. So this is definitely something that can go very well if you are able to get ahead early. I do also like the value that the blocking of the spells on the E can give on this Pantheon too against what Ole Miss have at their disposal, as we're already seeing a bit of an early invade here for Ole Miss. They want to try to catch someone out in their own jungle.
I mean, this was one of the biggest advantages that Ole Miss got in the early game last time around was Keel with his early pathing. Just, he got so far ahead so quickly previous game, and that is definitely a situation that Western wants to avoid again, but they don't currently have that information. They at least got a counter ward on the enemy Raptors, but if we see Crackodon full clear his top camps here and then path towards bottom side, I mean, that is a disaster for this Pantheon, and it would be for the second game in a row.
I'm just watching the minimap right now to see if that is going to actually happen or not, as Crackodon should maybe know at this point. I mean, there's only a ward in the enemy Raptors right now for them, so maybe he just doesn't.
I mean, the problem is he can't know for sure until 3 camps have already been done, right? Because, I mean, assumption is that Keel would either go red Krugs Raptors or start Raptors, right? So you can't know until 2 camps are done. So he might know now, but even then, maybe this Zinchao just started bottom side. That's the problem. They just didn't have the information. He's pathing towards Wolves, and look at this. There's a gank in mid.
Flashed after Candy in the mid lane, forces that flash as well, and Keel will actually rotate right back into his own red side.
That's a 3 quadrant.
So takes away 2 of the 3 camps down there, away from Crackodon. Another very good start to this game for Keel.
Yeah, and the Zeri being so weak in lane, that's why I don't like this as a blind, even though it allows Shogo to pick scaling and to still win the lane. So there's no opportunity here to go for a counter invade on Keel's bottom side jungle because you just don't have push anywhere. The gank in mid from Keel to pass through was fantastic, trading flashes, and it completely locks Crackodon out of this game. It's going to delay the Pantheon level 6, which is massively impactful. It's going to make the gank prospects harder for this Pantheon because you know where this guy is at all times. So the early game's going to be blunted, and it is just a really difficult situation for Western immediately to be in this game 3.
We are seeing some trades that are going well, though, for Western. As Stray's taken down about 100 HP. He does have to use the flash. Was holding that summoner spell for a very long time, as now Crackodon looking for some sort of invade on the blue buff as well, but the prio here for Ole Miss is just too much, as Rhino and Shogo already on the way here. Could pop the Ignite here on to Crackodon, and they will, and the Pantheon is ticking, will not go down here, as Asila also is very low here in the mid lane. So some rotating up to the mid lane, not finding any kills just yet. Is now Shogo jumping in onto Julian. The Zeri has the Yuumi on top of him, but now it's going to be matched by Keel.
Oh, Julian!
Will finish off the kill. Another knockup lands on Vince as well. This surely should be a double going over to Ole Miss. Shogo gets one, Keel gets the other, and Ole Miss are right back onto the board.
And Western's lucky it wasn't 3. Asila missed his flash Q onto the Pantheon, so Crackodon was able to walk away. But Julian, that flash just has to be better, because not only does he die for it, but Yuumi dies for it too, because Yuumi doesn't have flash to get over that wall after his AD carry fails it. I mean, maybe Shogo would have just flash followed anyway, and it was a moot point, but it just ends up being a summoner spell lost for 2 kills, and Shogo retaining the flash of his own. Ole Miss for the 3rd straight game, a big early game lead.
And that's not a good start. You're starting to feel a little bit nostalgic, feel a little deja vu if you're Western for the past couple of games after another instance where Shogo is able to get ahead here in the 2v2. This time on the Tristana, and I think a lot of it, again, goes down to Keel. It's a player we haven't actually talked about too much in this series overall, but is definitely somebody who, at some point, was considered one of the best junglers outside of Tier 1, outside of the LCS. And even though maybe that's not necessarily something that many people would fully agree with now, right now we're seeing him in full display. This is the Keel that, you know, was dominating Tier 2 and still is doing very solid down there. As we get another fight down here in the bot lane, Shogo's going to continue to match that. They take him down before Shogo can even finish that rocket jump. And now they're on to Vince as well. There's going to be even more kills going over here to this Tristana. 3-0, now 4-0 here for Ole Miss.
Rhino played that fight very well. He polyed Julian right as he got to the wall, so it allowed Shogo to land like 2 extra autos with the explosive charge on the Zeri, just a ton of extra burst that came through. And so by the time Julian was able to jump out, he was basically already dead. And now he's just going to get zoned off of minions because Keel's down here. Krakedon is going to be too weak to deal with this because he's down a level. Keel has a red buff. I mean, this is just Ole Miss playing at peak.
Yeah, I mean, kind of nothing really much else to say about it. This is exactly how Ole Miss want to win their games. Through the bottom lane, through Shogo and Rhino, just dominating in the 2v2. And Julian, who's been a very solid player for this team, at times here for Western, really silenced overall throughout the 3 games that we have seen so far. Now, obviously, still a lot left to play at this point, but Ole Miss already generated themselves a 2,000 gold lead. So they are feeling very good about where things are at.
And guess whose pockets it's on, right? It's on Shogo's, and that's the one guy you just can't let this happen. It's another kill.
It's happening again. Oh, no. Barrier popped here by Julian. The Ignite's not going to be able to finish him off, but it will certainly give him some plates here.
He's going to go back to base. He's level 4. He's level 4 on the Zeri, and he's getting zoned off another wave. It is just so miserable to play. I feel like the series has been like the Licorice tweet, where he's like, I guess this is what a major region versus a minor region is supposed to look like, because Western, they've been upsetting some of these really good teams, and Ole Miss is like, no. This is what it's supposed to look like, guys.
Yeah, just it hadn't looked like that so far in the tournament, which is why maybe there were some higher expectations for a team like Western. But that obviously has not come to fruition here, as Keel going to take away yet another red buff here.
Lived
away
in this bottom side jungle.
Yeah, they're gonna trade it back with some grubs, but that's just a very small price that Ole Miss are gonna have to pay for it.
Yeah, Keel, I mean, 3rd straight game with the earlier level 6. He has lived in this bottom side jungle. I mean, it's really helped secure the push and the ability for Shogo and Rhino to play however the hell they want, because just Krakedon can't get there. He's completely forced away, and I mean, even though Stray lost Flash early on, he's maintained a relatively safe position. And Asila grasp on this Azir, understanding that as long as he doesn't get one shot, there's not really a win condition available for Western in this game. So I like this so far, and he's, again, just having a great series, doing a good job of controlling mid.
Oh, Calculus trying to style on Stray a little bit here. One more auto attack could be enough. They will get the kill, and Calculus going to survive. Goodness! Western breathe a sigh of life, but it's going to come at the cost of their bot lane being targeted here once again, as Keel will dive in. Crescent Guard comes out, and it should be 2 more going over to Ole Miss. Shogo finishing it off with a double kill in for the Tristana.
Quality juggling from Ole Miss right there, but Krakedon, or Calculus rather, hey, at least got one back, as the signature Rumble does pay its dividends. Swiftness boots Rush to stay on top of this Aurora, and we've not really talked about it, but I do want to give Dr. Calculus a lot of credit. I think he's actually traded really well in this lane so far through the wave of the Aurora. Cycling his cooldowns and his tanking is beautifully. Does net himself a solo kill. Stray's flash was not quite back up. So credit to Calculus. Unfortunately, I think this game is going to get the old top lane experience. Grapes, I know you're familiar with this one. Where you get a solo kill, and you're like, oh my god, guys, we're winning. And then you look bottom, you hit tab, and you're like, what the hell's going on down there?
Normally it's the other way around, where I'm inting and the rest of my team is winning. But maybe that's a Stray experience.
I see. So you're Stray.
I'm Stray right now. Yeah, it's not going well for the rest of the map, but at least Candy gets on the board too, as Stray dies for the 2nd time this game.
I mean, again, the win condition for Western this game was always going to be their top side getting going and trying to bridge this area into the later stages of the game. The problem for me is just that I feel like Ole Miss outscales anyway. And with Zeri being this far behind, I mean, they're not going to just have to build a bridge. I think they're going to have to be the whole damn transportation here for Western. As Julian is, I mean, like, holy
he's level 5.
This is horrible. So, riddle me this, Batman. Why did they lane swap in game 1 when they had a way top, but not when their bottom lane is getting just absolutely ran like this in game 3?
I'm never doing that again. I want to play the 1v1. I want to be able to get ahead here. It is costing his bot lane quite a lot, though, at this point. Maybe for the second spawn of Grubs, they try to go for something here. Or maybe they just send him mid after the tower goes down, as it just is that easy to take it down Julian. The tower is shielded away from, but finally Kraken will shut him down. Teleport comes in from Candy, so a good response by the Western Mustangs. They will be able to get 2 kills back, most likely, as Rhino will finally drop to the Spirit Rush. However, Julian is not having a good time. All 7 kills right now for Ole Miss are on their bottom lane.
Kills got 1. Barely, but yeah.
Sorry,
I mean, the Silas going to go to get plates. It is a good response. But I mean, at the very least, Asila gets plates back, but Western, it is a good rotation from them. See, the difference between this play and all the other ones is that Western was actually able to get people in position to defend. We've talked about CLOL living in the bottom side jungle of Western the whole game. Well, this time, Kraken just went there anyway. Well, what the hell? That guy just died.
Hell yeah, Calc. All right.
All right, DK. Yeah, that should have been first team tier 3 right there. I'm never letting that go, man.
Yeah, never. I'll be on my deathbed saying that in 2024 summer, Dr. Calculus is their first team all NACLQ. As look at the gold lead. It suddenly shrunk a little bit. It's gonna get answered right back nicely here by Ole Miss after they take down this turret. But the fact that Western are finding things around the top side is good. The problem is the area that they were hoping to scale is not going to be scaling basically at all. So,
hey, Yumi's got our sensor already. That's something, maybe. Choco's already got a tower. Oh my goodness. I mean, I'm really curious. Western's top side is actually quite strong. Dr. Calculus is starting to beat Stray pretty hard. That last solo kill was a bit unexpected. And, I mean, Keel is still ahead of Krakedon, but Candy, he's got a couple kills. Like, it's not over here.
Oh, they steal the grub. Hey, it's 6 grubs for Western. That's another win that they can put into their book. Will it mean that they can win this fight, though? A shuffle comes in from Asala. Yes! Krakedon still healing things up. Could look good for the side of Western, but Stray will find the first kill. Candy haven't gotten into the fight yet. Issuing out a little bit of poke. Finally, dash under the wall. Charm goes wide. And so it'll just be the 1-0.
Damn, I'm actually surprised that fight was so bad for Western. It felt like they were able to get all 4 members in position in a reasonable amount of time, but I guess Krakedon just didn't have enough spells left to keep himself alive. And Ole Miss was just grouped up that little bit faster, but Shogo not being there is a winning formula. It's Calculus!
Shield to keep him up for a little bit, but Rhino will take him down. Now Julian, though, with the lightning crash, can start to maybe come online. He dashes over the wall. Finally gets on the board. Welcome to the game,
We're back!
It's a double kill for the Zeri. And Western right back into this one, as Ole Miss maybe playing a little bit too hard, too fast. Stray on the run, pops the Between Worlds, trying to get some kill back onto Candy, but Candy will live, and Julian gets 3.
Julian, he's so back. He's being Julian in this game now, Grapes. Oh my goodness. Let's go, baby. Zeri's online. Just forget about the fact that Shogo's already got an item and a half and he took mid lane tier 1. That doesn't matter. Julian, 3 kills.
It's the start of something. Will it be the
Western
continuation of something? Check.
Right? Western perma-fighting. It's
now,
possible.
Will it turn into anything else? Hey, it's much... The win probability has increased about tenfold with this engage happening. And it's another instance of Ole Miss, I think, overstaying their welcome a little bit. I mean, they should have just backed out after getting that initial kill.
And a bit split on their call as well. Shogo and Asila are both still pushing waves. So it's like, guys, are we fighting or are we leaving? It's kind of a little bit of both, and it does mean that Western's able to punish really nicely. To me, the big takeaway is actually still how strong Decalc is. Like, I mean, he roasted Keel alive to start that one off, and he's going to do it again.
He's very strong. Has overheated, now issues the equalizer. Teleport's coming in from Candy as well. They want
to
fight
fraud.
This. Calculus does it by himself. This is why you banned that Rumble away, as Decalc going crazy here in game number 3.
I mean, like, Western, let's go. Keep fighting. Just, it doesn't matter if we're behind. Just keep doing something. Is it worth it? No. They TP'd bottom, and Asila's going to get the last outer. So, Ole Miss is still winning, but this is what you have to do. This is how Western beat Giants earlier on in this tournament. If you want to slay a monster, you need a good spear, and you have to swing it. Western trying their best to do it, and Calculus is the one leading the charge.
It's costing him a lot of turrets, though, as a reset has come through. for Truly, and he nearly gets one shot by the power of both Shogo and Stray from long range. And so that Zeri's going to have to head back to base. Trade?
That guy's still level 8. He might not be as back as we hoped, Grapes.
but the kill
He's
score,
kind of back.
You can look at the KDA and say, like, hey, he did okay this game without knowing the full story. Charm lands
you
on
could be like, oh, he like 1-for-1 every trade in lane, right?
Right, totally. Has a... Oh! The movement from Candy there, keeping himself up here. Oh, the charm doesn't connect, but he's still able to find it onto Asila as Ole Miss overforce on that play and are going to get punished for it. But now Candy might have done just the same. He's going to go in into trade as Kraken on picking up the kill on to kill. Here comes Calculus, here comes Julian. Ole Miss winning the fight. Calculus has ult, could continue to chase this one down. The equalizer going in on the Tristana. Shogo is getting flashed on after nearly burning down. Kraken on takes down Stray.
Wait.
For the Western Legends.
Gold is back to even. Western, are you kidding me? An ace onto Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is starting to ego a little bit, and you can't do that. Julian is 5-4-0 on the Zeri. Calculus 8 KP 3-1 and 5. They're starting to come back, and Ole Miss. Let's see a little respect if we could please. Because losing this game from the position they were in would not be a good look for this team if we're thinking about championship aspirations. As Candy underneath the tower outplays Keel and Asila. The chase may be a bit ambitious into a great polymorph from Rhino, but Ole Miss is just in a horrible position on the map, and the rest of Western able to collapse and able to take the fight.
You know what happened? Collimer started doing his NACL prep for next week, and all of a sudden he started playing like this again. Overforcing some plays, being a little bit too aggressive, and Ole Miss getting punished for it here. And now Western, all of a sudden, truly back into this one. I mean, we were memeing a little bit, but now Truly has 2 items.
No, they're
two
back.
That Shogo has, but it is still a decently strong point for this area, and Ole Miss have to lock back in. They have to play the way that they were playing earlier on in this series, because that recent sequence, series changing potentially if Western are able to hold on to this and win.
If we could get a gold toggle from observers, I'd be really curious. I think Shogo is still the richest member in the game, but Dr. Calculus and Julian likely not far behind. Oh my god, Shogo is so bad. But as I was saying, Dr. Calculus and Julian, I was saying not far behind, maybe still far behind. However, they're ahead of everybody else, and that's what matters. And so
we're going
Western
to a new patch.
does still have that angle.
I'm glad we're going to the new patch because Julian is a bounty, and that doesn't make any sense.
That's true
right now in this game.
Hey, he's got I think he's got 5 unanswered kills. It kind of makes sense. It's not a big bounty at the very least. I do want to say though, just to manage our expectations, Ole Miss is still very far ahead in map control at the moment, and not only that, I do still think they have better scaling with the Azir, Tristana, also the better front line of Xin Zhao. They have a Lulu, so I feel that Western's composition is harder to play later on. We'll see what happens, though, as Ole Miss might have gone too far forward into the jungle again. And
Asila now has been caught out, has to use the shifting sands just to get away. Julian and Vince are going to continue to try to chase him down. That's a flash away from the Azir. With the dragon spawning shortly here. Or not really. They was taken up by Ole Miss. But for their side, just got to keep making sure you don't die to the plays like that. That was a overall win for Ole Miss, I would say.
I mean, I don't know. Western just got 2 flashes for kind of nothing. Yeah, they lose a bit of jungle control, but I mean, they're going to be able to take it back after pushing out these waves. And so, I think Ole Miss we're starting to see the problems that they've had in the NACL where they just get a little loose, right? It looks like they're not clear on what we're actually trying to do. If the goal is to put down vision and leave. Stop trying to look for fights, right? And they need that clear foresight in their comms to be able to convert on these plays, but they're having a bit of brain lag, it seems, Grapes, and maybe they need a bit of exit lag to get out of that.
Yeah, you can use that code, as we mentioned earlier. Again, exit lag has that multi-root connection technology that ensures stable and optimized gameplay for you play it at home, and maybe that can help you out in terms of your gameplay. Maybe you could look like some of the players you see on the Rift here today between Ole Miss and Western, as Western suddenly have that lag kind of away from them. They're looking good at this point in the game. It's not in terms of the map control, though, and they just need to make sure that when these major objectives do come up, when a potential Soul Dragon, when a Baron comes, that Western are able to fight and are able to be prepared to engage in a full 5v5.
So Shogo should be 3 items by the time this Soul Point Dragon comes up. And this Mountain Soul, again, Western, a very single target damage focused composition, at least. I feel that they need to start the fights by getting a lot down onto one person. Obviously, Dr. Calculus and Julian will provide AoE later on. And so that Mountain Soul going to really pay dividends on that end, especially with the Rumble stacking flat pen right now. But Western, they have been able to defend their bottom side jungle for the last few minutes or so, something that we could not say in the early stages. Now stacking up on mid, summoning Rift Herald. It is going to force a response here out of the Land Sharks.
We'll see how far they want to go. They already have Stray pushing on the bottom lane, so they'll at least be able to get some control in that department. Remember, 6 grubs here for Western definitely does mean a bit, as the Equalizer will force Shogun to rocket jump away and Teal to pop the Crescent Guard. So, despite no kills going over, Western get a tower back. However, it's being matched right now by Stray pushing on that bot tier 2.
Great Crescent Guard from Keel. And Ole Miss, I think a really good defense from them. They were never really going to hang on to that tower against 6 grubs and a Rift Herald, and they get key ultimates out. No Equalizer, no Spirit Rush, no now Grand Starfall ahead of this Dragon. Yes, it cost the Crescent Guard, but misunderstanding that those resources have been invested, they're actually ripping Otacon. Now, I'm not sure how to feel about this one, Grapes. Their resistance is going to get shredded, and again, no front line without Crescent Guard.
But no big ultimates here for Western. They're going to have to jump in somehow, some way. Krakodon just throwing out the spear.
Oh, Julian!
Julian one-shotting Rhino before the fight really has begun. And Calculus rips apart Asila the same way. However, now Julian is down. It's going to be up to the top side to do it. But Western are accomplishing their goal of winning this fight. They've got 4. The minions take down Stray. It's a triple kill for Calculus. And another ace for the Western Legends.
What is happening right now? Why did Ole Miss force Otacon? They could have just waited for the Dragon. Instead, Western is ahead by 1,000 gold. They're going to deny the Dragon stacking as Dr. Calculus has arrived, PhD in hand. And oh my word, Western is not done just yet.
They don't want their CLOL run to end right here, Hawk, as we get another look at this replay. Again, the Otacon was secured, but Asila and Shogo are separated. All of Ole Miss end up being really split up in this fight.
Yeah. And a rare mechanical mistake from Shogo, as he rocket jumped forward to try to finish off the Yuumi, when he could have just fired one more auto, and he didn't get the rocket jump back to get away from Calculus. So he just gets roasted by that Rumble. You just can't do that. As Shogo, it's such a rare moment of mispositioning, I feel, from this AD carry. And so I'm just Ole Miss, what's going on right now? I mean, credit to Western again. The resilience from this team, that has been their story for so many years. It goes beyond any single series, any single team. That is Western legends. But I have to feel that Ole Miss has just completely thrown this game away from the position they were in, and they're going to continue to do so as Asila is absolutely killed.
He just stands there knowing that his fate has been sealed. Calculus picks that one up. Again, the over-grouping from Western is going to cost them things. It'll cost them waves being lost, towers being forced down, teleports being utilized to try and defend. But if you can keep finding these kills, it's going to eventually pay out for you potentially here, as Shogo finally gets one back by dashing in and taking down Candy, but he's responded to by just Stray getting bursted down on one side of the fight, and now Shogo in a 2v1 against Julian and Vince.
What?
But he jumps in, he picks up another, and now it is just the Yuumi left standing. Shogo has to get out of here some way. He can just press the B button, I think. Yeah, he's going to be able to get back. Nobody's going to be able to stop him.
Can Yuumi stop him? No, I think he's too far. What?
Shogo
just 1v2'd the enemy bot lane in their base while Pantheon was killing a support. Stray died too somewhere. This game is off the rails, man. I mean, this is a CLOL game. We have 35 combined kills in 25 minutes. Western is certain to, at the very least, achieve the longest game time that they have in this series. Dr. Calculus and Krakodon continue to be the absolute GOATs for this team, and it's all them against Shogo, the hero of Ole Miss. 4 items on this Tristana. Maul Malmortius completed to try to survive some of that burst coming out from the Rumble. It's going to really mitigate some of that flat pen that we did note. Dr. Calculus is stacking as truly, and that is a bad mid-wave contest.
He gets bursted, and Asila will finish him off with that shuffle forward. Krakenon going down as well, and now Ole Miss finally back into this game.
Wait,
they get themselves 3 kills off of the mid lane going down.
Did I jinx log his game time?
They're pushed right down the mid. Maybe the game time, Hawk, maybe not going to be as vulnerable as you say, as Ole Miss are going to break open this inhibitor, and we'll see what they can do.
I think it's over. It's over. It's only Calculus alive. Now he has the equalizer to try to cut the wave. He's got to drop it now.
There they go onto the Rumble. He just gets bursted down. Oh my goodness.
He missed the minions.
What was going so well for Western
What?
suddenly turns into disaster as Ole Miss find one fight around the mid lane and will send Western down to the lower bracket. 3-0 the score, and Ole Miss are headed to the upper finals.
And in 26 minutes, that might be the most unbelievable caster curse of my entire career. I mean, Julian, you just cannot contest that mid wave. Like, Shogo's always going to jump forward on you. Ole Miss has first access from the river, and he's still got 2 members catching solo lanes low. So that was just a bad mistake from Western. But to see the game end that way is, I mean, that's tough. Because Western, they were doing it. They were going blow for blow. They were punishing the mistakes of Ole Miss. They weren't letting them get away with whatever they wanted. And it felt like we could be in for a real war. But we don't even get to see one more team fight. It just ends so abruptly. And it's funny, too, because after the first couple of games, I think this is the result I was expecting. But, you know, we get the Lickers tweet. Yeah, this is what a major region versus a minor region is supposed to look like. But just not like that. I don't know. I feel empty inside now.
This is what a varsity team against a club team is supposed to look like, unfortunately, here. It's Ole Miss.
There you go. That's the collegiate version.
You get the win. Yep. And we do say goodbye to the Western Legends, at least here in the upper bracket. Not entirely confirmed of what their status will be moving forward here in the event. They are slated to play against the winner of Winthrop versus Northwood, which will be happening after this. But we will continue to update you guys once we further confirm that information at the end of this series. But for Ole Miss, let's talk about them for a little bit, because this is probably some of the best CLOL games, best League of Legends that we've seen them play in a while. You know, probably similar level to what they looked like against Fisher in the NECC finals. And they finally have been able to bring it throughout a full 3 games and take down a team like Western, who were definitely the underdogs, but certainly the upstarts in terms of what they were hoping to accomplish against a team like this. And now, top 3 here for Ole Miss. Again, their best accomplishment so far in terms of CLOL, and they just continue to climb and climb.
Yeah, top 3 is a really good place to be. I still have some concerns that game 3 from Ole Miss was not great, but I partially, maybe I'm giving them too much credit. I somewhat attribute that to them just kind of for funning it because they so hard won those first 2 games. It was not a great look, but still, making top 3 is amazing. And for those first 2 games, they were a really high caliber League of Legends team. Again, the door potentially open against a UG-less Maryville to hunt for a crown. More than likely going to be Ole Miss's opponent. We've yet to get an update on game 3 of that series as of a couple minutes ago. They were still playing. But yeah, I mean, perhaps a teaser of a potential final. I think the bigger story is, like, for a lot of these guys, it's just getting to the LAN. That means everything. And Ole Miss, they have 2 chances now to do it. And what a treat it would be to see them in Raleigh. What a treat it would be to see Western in Raleigh if they could run through the lower bracket.
Some sort of rematch. Hey, it's possible. Would not be super likely, all things considered here. We do have our MVP graphic, I think, that we can show right now. I think none of us are super surprised with who this might be, but it is the 80 carry in Shogo, running away with this one pretty handily. Made a couple oopsies there in game number 3, but I think overall you're pretty happy with how things have gone for this guy.
It's funny. I feel like every time I watch an Ole Miss series, I try to look for a reason to give anybody else MVP. And I want to give Keel a shout out. I thought Keel played a very good series. But, like, it's just hard not to give it to this guy, especially after that second and third game where, I mean, he was just a monster. Shogo continues to be the primary carry for this team. and an absolutely deserved MVP performance. We said coming into the series that this bottom lane for Ole Miss, uh, he needs to be, the one that really can be the carry, take down the new bottom lane of Western, and they absolutely did that.
Yeah, and congratulations here to Shogo. Again, a lot of legacy still left to fill, as I believe still on the route to potentially making it to his third college championship, which I don't think any other player has done. You can fact check me on this, Hawk, but I'm pretty sure nobody's gotten a three. And UST, with Shogo
Uh
having those two wins, could definitely get there.
yeah, I don't actually know about getting to three finals. Niles immediately comes to mind for me as someone that might have done it, but at the very least, I know no one has won three finals except for Saskio. Collegiate Goat Saskio of Maryville University in Winthrop. He's the only one that's won three CLO finals, and you know that Shogo definitely has that in the back of his mind this year. It was a storyline last year for sure, and I mean we'll see. Only time will tell. Ole Miss, they are continuing to surge.
And speaking of, we've got the MVP right here on stage for us to talk to. It is Shogo, the bot laner here for Ole Miss. Shogo, first of all, congratulations on the win and for winning the MVP player of the series here. First question, I guess, expectations going into this series against Western. Obviously, top three is at stake. And you've seen the run that Western have gone on, even though they weren't necessarily the favorites against either of them. Was there any worry about that Cinderella run kind of continuing against you guys here, or were you pretty confident going in?
Not really. I don't think there is a world where they take us down, especially with Lynx being out. I think with Lynx, it would be an interesting matchup for sure. Have a lot of respect for Lynx. But without him, he has his obligations, and without him, the team seemed to lack a way to contain me and Rhino.
Yeah, I definitely think that's fair to say, especially after that game three. And I want to ask you a little bit about coming into the series as well, because I know a big thing that me and Grapes, and as well as a lot of people have been talking about, have been sort of the ups and downs for your team throughout this year. And I know you all have been vocal about that as well. And wanted to ask, like, if you could speak a little bit to sort of the turbulence of the Ole Miss season and how you felt that your team has continued to grow throughout the year.
I think the most frustrating part about this team is that our highs are really, really high. Like we can go toe to toe with even like NA and Luminosity, but then when it matters, we just don't show up, and then it's kind of like we know we can do better, but who else is going to believe us because no one else can see it because we just don't show up when it matters. So that's been a super big frustration for us because we all know we can be doing better on match day, especially in NACL. I think in CLOL so far we've been doing really well. Um, and of course, the ultimate test is going to be against Maryville next week or whenever that is. Which I do think without UG is going to be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree that it could get a little spicy now that that roster change has kind of gone through. Does it feel any different playing in collegiate games versus the NACL? I know that they're obviously the same game that you're playing, but it seems like you guys are able to lock in and look really clean in terms of the games that you've been able to play in the championship so far.
Well, for me, it doesn't. It's just, another day at the job, kind of. Um, but we definitely feel like we play a little differently on NACL. Maybe it's jitters, maybe it's, nerves. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but it seems like we're playing a lot less coordinated and a lot less planned. And I think it shows on our results a lot. But yeah, so far in CLO we've been doing great, so I'm happy to at least have that going.
Yeah. And, that's gotten you to this point. Top three now for you for the first time in a couple of years, for Ole Miss for the first time ever. You are now one game away from Raleigh and two away from a CLO championship, and you all have two chances to do it. Shogo, what does it mean to potentially be approaching what would be a fabled third crown for yourself and a first one for your school?
It definitely means everything. Like, I came here to do CLO, and ACL was kind of just a byproduct of things that happened after I already like came to America. But the goal I had in mind coming to this country in the first place back in 2021 when I joined Columbia College was to play collegiate, do well, get my degree for free. That's like a big bonus for sure. So yeah, CLOL is my home, and CLOL is my like home turf. I feel very comfortable. Obviously, I've done super well in CLOL in the past, and hopefully we get the upset on Maryville and actually make it happen because they don't look as good when they're not playing zero ping versus 60.
Okay, well, so on the land stage, maybe that's where things change a little bit. Hey, good little insight there, Shogo, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Before we let you go, any shout outs that you want to give to the show before we move things on and transition over to our next series?
Yeah, shout out to my team, our staff, Alec and Colmer and Warhood, for surviving with me as a teammate. And shout out to my fans watching. Shout out my girlfriend, and shout out you guys for keeping eyes on collegiate.
Hey, we appreciate that.
Thank
you
you
so
very
much,
much, Shogo.
It's always a pleasure to get to cover you guys, cover Ole Miss, cover you specifically as well, and wish you best of luck next week because you guys are going up against Maryville in that upper finals, as well as a couple of NACL games beforehand. So make sure you lock in for a bit of a busy week. So thank you so much, Shogo. Hope you have a good one, and best of luck the rest of the way. As we're going to close out our coverage here for this series as well. A fun one, albeit not a very competitive one here, Hawk, as I think we also have received word that Western, unfortunately, will be unable to play their series tomorrow as well, meaning that the winner of this next matchup that you are going to be seeing between Northwood and Winthrop is a battle now for top 4 instead of just top 6. And that creates a little bit higher stakes, all things considered.
Yeah, perhaps Western's run ending as anticlimactically as that game 3 in CLOL. Obviously, I mean, things have developed very quickly with the Western FFing situation. Like, I don't know how absolutely confirmed this is, but at least
It's
that's
confirmed.
the word that we are getting. So Western against, rather Winthrop against Northwood potentially for an auto bid to top 4. I do think it's fair to say that either Winthrop or Northwood would be the favorites against a Lynx-less Western regardless in that lower bracket matchup, but definitely a bit disappointing to see, but still a top 6 finish for the Western Legends at absolute minimum is, I think, a feat, especially considering where they found themselves for most of this year. They defeated 2 of the Big 5 and an incredible way for Western Legends to potentially be sunsetting their legacy as one of the greatest programs to ever compete at this level of play, and doing it all as a club team with nothing but their passion and a dream. And you absolutely have to give the utmost respect to that organization and those players and what every single person that has gone through that building has done over the last decade.
Yeah, so shout out to Western for, again, the end to a great legacy that they've established for themselves in Canadian esports and in North American collegiate esports overall, and wishing the best for all the players as they conclude their collegiate journeys. But Ole Miss's journey not over just yet, Hawk, as they continue to move on. They are another school from the NECC that has really dominated overall this week of games and just throughout the championships as a whole. Speaking of the NECC, we have 2 more of those teams facing off in our next series. It's going to be Northwood University up against Winthrop. I don't know if we definitely have the lower bracket that we can look at right now because those games haven't been finished off. If we could take a look at that real quick before we wrap things up here for this series, just to see what exactly things are looking like down there. As you see, Western would have been in that spot in the lower quarterfinals, but it looks like they will not be playing tomorrow. So the winner of Winthrop versus Northwood will be advancing to those lower semis and will have the opportunity to make it into the top 4.
And right now, UST up about 4,000 gold against UHSP in Game 3. This would be match point for UST to move on and face Fisher College down in that lower quarterfinal, with the winner of that facing the winner of Winthrop versus Northwood. So we are getting down to the wire here in the CLOL season. I believe, Grapes, our top 6, or rather, our top 6 is basically going to be exactly the same as it was last year, with a couple of key differences. Western and Ole Miss making it in with no Slew, no Northwood, but I mean, nor Northwood or Winthrop, I should say. Maybe tipping my hand as to who I think is going to win that series, but still an incredibly competitive CLOL it has been. And if we are able to take a look at the upper bracket as well, just to emphasize, even if we don't have it completely updated, it is Ole Miss versus Maryville University with a spot at Raleigh on the line next Saturday. That is going to be can't miss League of Legends.
Absolute must-see TV. Winner going to Raleigh. Loser getting one more chance to do it the next day. Next week's games going to be very, very fun as we've continued to shrink our field in half week after week. We're going to go from 8 to 4 at the end of this one, 4 to 2 at the end of the week following. But that journey's not over just yet here in this day of games. We still have one more series left to cover for you guys. A battle between the NACC's Winthrop and Northwood. A rematch of the lower bracket between those two that Winthrop did pull away with a victory against them. But now that Northwood have fully locked in, they want blood. They want an opportunity to get back into that top 4 spot like they were in just a year ago. And we'll see if that happens after this one. But that's going to do it for myself and Hawk here on the caster desk here today. Thank you so much, everybody, for following this series. Once again, final score here, Ole Miss with a 3-0 win over the Western Legends, University of Western Ontario. We're going to take a short break, and when we return, it'll be our matchup in the lower bracket between Winthrop and Northwood.